Chapter 979. Ji Luyan spoke very honestly. He stretched out his hand and asked for 10 spirit-level tidal powers. Jiang Qin's face darkened. He stared at Ji Luyan and said snappily, "Do you think this thing is cabbage?" This time, Jiang Qin had killed the geniuses of the upper-class world. He did not say much about the spirit-level titles that he had obtained. He still had to give them to Jiang Luyan and the others. He did not even have enough for himself, and he still wanted to give them to Ji Luyan? Wasn't this nonsense? Moreover, what was the use of Ji Luyan's promise? The two were originally opposing each other. If Jiang Qin was really in trouble, would he let the creatures of the netherworld help? This is the territory of Yongzhou. At this moment, Ji Luyan said softly. The meaning behind his words was very obvious. In his territory, Jiang Qin had to give it to him today, even if he did not want to. "Are you going to rob me?" Jiang Qin raised his eyebrows. His expression was calm, and there was no trace of panic in his eyes. He knew that Ji Luyan was very strong and could easily kill an Earth-level tidal god. But so what? One had to know that within this area, there were formations set up by Jiang Qin. If Ji Luyan dared to make a move, Jiang Qin would not sit still and wait for death. At most, he would activate the formation and fight. "This is a deal," Ji Luyan said. "Although the two worlds of yin and yang are opposing each other, we also have a common enemy, don't we? If you want the tidal powers, go and get them yourself," Jiang Qin said in a deep voice. "Just based on your promise, you want 10 spirit-level tidal powers from me? Are you trying to gain something without risking anything? If you don't give it to me, you won't be able to leave Yongzhou." Ji Luyan smiled and said, "Think carefully before you speak." When these words were said, Jiang Qin's expression became even gloomier. He could see that Ji Luyan's deal today had to be carried out. However, would Jiang Qin obediently give it to him? The answer was obvious. Impossible. Buzz. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from above Jiang Qin's head, and the sky instantly darkened. After several breaths of time, tribulation clouds appeared, and lightning filled the entire sky. A purple gold hammer materialized in the air. It was something condensed from lightning and the power of the Great Path. This was divine retribution. "If you don't leave, I'm afraid you'll have to go through this tribulation with me," Jiang Qin joked. "Why don't you come and try?" "You." The smile on Ji Luyan's face vanished. Fear finally appeared in his eyes as he looked at the tribulation cloud above Jiang Qin's head and the mountain-like purple gold hammer. The soul-capturing forbidden technique was a technique that went against the harmony of the heavens. After Jiang Qin used it several times, the might of the heavens' punishment would definitely be terrifying. Even Ji Luyan didn't dare take this risk. He didn't even want to stay here any longer. However, the things on Jiang Qin's body were too attractive. Among the dozens of tidal powers, there was no lack of spirit-grade titles. If these things could be obtained by the underworld, it wouldn't take long for them to cultivate a group of deities with spirit-grade titles. "So many tidal powers, can you use them all?" Ji Luyan said in a deep voice. His figure kept retreating, and in a few breaths, he left the range of the divine retribution. "If I can't use them all, I'll sell them," Jiang Qin said. "In this world, there are plenty of people who want to buy these things. I could buy them too." Ji Luyan compromised. He was willing to use rare treasures and heavenly treasures to exchange for them. Jiang Qin directly refused. He wouldn't do this kind of business, selling the tidal powers to the creatures of the underworld. And then the creatures of the underworld would cultivate experts and then counterattack the world of the living? Jiang Qin wasn't stupid. How could he do that? "Then there's no room for discussion?" Ji Luyan said in a deep voice. "Our standpoints are different. How can we discuss it?" Jiang Qin said in a deep voice. After saying that, Jiang Qin stood up and flew out of Yongzhou. At the same time, the tribulation cloud above his head followed along. The huge purple gold hammer trembled, constantly gathering the power of heaven and earth and the power of the Great Path. Wherever the tribulation cloud passed, heaven and earth would be purple gold. Fragments of the Great Path would appear in the air like gorgeous petals. Jiang Qin didn't care about this at all. He knew that there would be heavenly punishment if he used the soul detention forbidden technique, so he had already unsealed the seal on the chaotic aura. As long as the chaotic aura was there, the heavenly punishment was equivalent to a kind of nourishment for him. However, what made Jiang Chen rather fearful was that Ji Luyun followed him. He was neither slow nor slow. From the beginning to the end, he maintained a distance from Jiang Chen. It was as if he wanted to wait for Jiang Chen to finish transcending the heavenly punishment before making his move. If you continue to follow me, do you believe that I won't drag you through the tribulation together? Jiang Chen's figure stopped, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Your cultivation is inferior to mine, and your speed is inferior to mine. Ji Luyun chuckled and said, You can't catch up to me, but I can catch up to you. As soon as he said this, Jiang Chen immediately laughed bitterly. Then, Jiang Chen took out 3 spirit-level titles and said, How about 3? Oh, you're compromising? Ji Luyun smiled mockingly and said, 10. Ji Luyun thought it through very clearly. Since Jiang Chen was willing to take out 3, it meant that Jiang Chen had compromised. Since he compromised, there was no problem asking for 10 from the other party. This was the logic of taking a step back and taking 1,000 steps back. 5, no more, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. He was actually bargaining with Ji Luyun. However, Ji Luyun's attitude was very unyielding and insisted on 10. Just like that, one of them stood on the spot with a heavenly punishment on his head, saliva flying from his mouth as he started bargaining. The other was wary of the power of heavenly punishment and did not dare to approach. He maintained a distance from Jiang Chen from start to finish. For a moment, the two of them seemed to be in a stalemate. I gave you 3 and you don't want it. I gave you 5 and you don't want it either. Since that's the case, I don't want to give you a single one. After more than 10 breaths, a hint of a smile suddenly appeared on Jiang Chen's face, and he said, Let me remind you, it's still not too late to leave now. What? Ji Luyun frowned, completely unable to understand where Jiang Chen's confidence came from. However, in the next moment, Ji Luyun's face darkened. Boom! With the sound of the air being torn apart, only to see Old One step out of the void. Coming with him was also Yu Xiangchen. The moment these two people appeared, Jiang Chen first used Chaos Aura to devour the heavenly punishment, then looked at Ji Luyun with a smile on his face and said mockingly, Now, it's my turn to negotiate with you. There are rules in the 2 worlds of yin and yang. These 2 people beside you can't make a move against me, Ji Luyun said in a deep voice. Ji Luyun had yet to reach Lord level, while Old One and Yu Xiangchen were peak Lord level. According to the rules, these 2 people indeed could not make a move against Ji Luyun. However, what was this kind of rule to Jiang Chen? One had to know. Jiang Chen was merely celestial deity realm, while Ji Luyun was a tidal deity. Previously, didn't Ji Luyun want to make a move against Jiang Chen? Since the other party wanted to break the rules, Jiang Chen was also not to be outdone. Just now, when he was bargaining with Ji Luyun, he secretly contacted his previous life's eldest disciple. Don't talk to me about these useless things, Jiang Chen said. Now it's my turn to negotiate a deal with you. Finished talking, the smile on Jiang Chen's face became even brighter as he said, How much do you think your life is worth? Chapter 980. Ji Luyun's expression was ugly as he frowned. 7-colored light appeared on his body as if he was about to attack. He was very confident in himself, as if he was invincible and wanted to fight it out with Old One and Yu Xiangchen. But he quickly calmed down. After all, the other party was 2 peak lords. In a 1-on-2 situation, there was no chance of winning. Even if he killed one, he would probably be killed by the other. Moreover, he could tell that Old One and Yu Xiangchen were very strong. Even in a 1-on-1 situation, it would be difficult for him to suppress them. As for running, that was even more out of the question. Old One and Yu Xiangchen had already surrounded him from the front and back. It was too difficult to escape from the hands of 2 peak lords. It was almost impossible. You're breaking the rules by doing this, Ji Luyun said in a deep voice. When the war between the yin and yang begins, if there are no rules to restrict it, aren't you afraid of rivers of blood flowing in the yang realm? When the time comes, Even mortals will be implicated. Hearing this, Jiangchen nodded and said, rules are very important, but I don't want to talk about any rules now. With that, Jiangchen waved his hand and said, suppress him. You. Ji Luyun was anxious, but before he could do anything, Old One and Yu Xiangchen suppressed him and sealed his divine power. At that moment, Jiangchen smiled and walked in front of Ji Luyun. He patted his shoulder and said, young man, you're still too young. Let go of me. Ji Luyun said coldly, do you know who I am? I'm the holy son of the underworld's great flowing cloud. This is the Yang realm. Jiangchen said softly. Creatures of the underworld came to the Yang realm to behave atrociously. And you want to use your title as the holy son of the underworld to intimidate me? What are you thinking? Smack! With that, Jiangchen slapped Ji Luyun's head and asked with a smile, tell me, how much is your life worth? How dare you humiliate me? Ji Luyun's eyes were red. As the holy son of the underworld's great flowing cloud, his status was extremely noble. Just like when he first arrived in Yongzhou, all the living beings of the underworld had to kneel down to welcome him. But now, not only was he suppressed, but he was also slapped on the head by Jiangchen. This was simply a disgrace. I'll ask you one last time. How much is your life worth? A cold light flashed in Jiangchen's eyes as he said, if it's not valuable, then there's no point in keeping it. The arrogance in Ji Luyun's eyes instantly disappeared, and his body involuntarily trembled. After all, compared to his life, nothing else mattered. What do you want? Ji Luyun said in a low voice. Just now, you wanted the title power in my hands. Jiangchen said softly. Then, your life, I'll use the title power in exchange. As he spoke, Jiangchen stretched out 5 fingers and said, this number in exchange for your life. 5 spirit grade titles? Ji Luyun's face fell, and he was furious. He felt like he was being despised. Was the holy son of the great flowing cloud only worth 5 spirit-level titles? Was Ji Luyun's life so worthless? No, it's 5 earth-level titles. Jiangchen smiled and said, your life should be worth this number, right? Ji Luyun heard this and felt a little better. At least his life was worth quite a lot. But soon, Ji Luyun's face darkened. Where could he find an earth-level title? One had to know that earth-level title deities were rare to begin with. Which cultivator who could have an earth-level title wasn't the little treasure of their respective sex? They didn't even have enough time to dote on them. So how could he deprive them of their title power in exchange for Ji Luyun's life? Moreover, he wanted 5? Wasn't this nonsense? Change the condition. Ji Luyun said in a low voice. Your request is too much, and it's impossible to fulfill. But I want an earth-level title now. If you're not willing to give it to me, then... Jiangchen's eyes flashed coldly as he said to Old One beside him, Old One, I'll leave it to you. Wait. At this moment, Ji Luyun panicked. He could see that Jiangchen really dared to do anything. Now, if he couldn't take out something good, he was afraid that his life would really be gone. I don't have Earth-level title power, but I know of a place that has many Earth-level titles. Ji Luyun hurriedly said, afraid that Old One's palm would strike. Oh, where? Jiangchen's eyes lit up, and he was very curious. It's in Yongzhou City. Ji Luyun said. Back then, the emperor of the underworld found out that there was a ruin here that contained many title powers, so he occupied this place. Yongzhou City? Jiangchen frowned, looked at Old One and asked, do you know that there are ruins in Yongzhou City? One had to know that among the few disciples that Jiangchen had taken in his previous life, one of them had occupied Yongzhou City. And Jiangchen also knew a little about the things in Yongzhou City. But he really didn't hear of any ruins in Yongzhou City. When Old One heard this, he also shook his head blankly and said, I didn't hear those juniors mention it. Of course they wouldn't know. Ji Luyun explained, even King of Gods might not be able to discover the ruins in Yongzhou City. Only the Emperor of the Underworld would be able to see through it. Oh! Jiangchen was relieved, but then he slapped Ji Luyun's head and said in annoyance, now that Yongzhou City is your territory, you want us to go to Yongzhou City to kill us. This, impossible. Ji Luyun touched the bump on his forehead. He was furious, but he still suppressed his anger and explained. This time, the experts that came from the underworld to the Yang realm were the two emperors from before. Now that the two emperors are dead, the strongest in Yongzhou City is me. Oh, are you sure? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows. Naturally, he didn't believe Ji Luyun's words. However, Jiang Chun was very interested in the ruins. Plus, with Ji Luyun in his hands, the underworld beings in Yongzhou City wouldn't dare to do anything. If you dare to lie to me, I can take your life in an instant, Jiang Chun said in a low voice. After saying this, Jiang Chun stood up and said to Old One and Yu Xianchen, "Come with me to Yongzhou City." Old One naturally didn't have a problem, but Yu Xianchen's face was filled with reluctance. After all, Yueshan died for Jiang Chun. This grudge still hasn't been resolved. Today, if it wasn't for Old One's face, Yu Xianchen wouldn't have come. Look at your face, Jiang Chun said in annoyance. I already told you that Yueshan didn't die. She reincarnated. I need to see her personally. Only then will I believe you. Yu Xianchen said, "Believe it or not, it's up to you." Jiang Chun was too lazy to explain. He had already said many times that Yueshan didn't die, and according to the time, she should have ascended to the ninth heaven god realm. Perhaps Yueshan had already ascended, but her memories hadn't awakened, and he didn't know where she was now. Chapter 981. Yu Xianchen did not travel with Jiang Chun. To him, coming this time was already the most benevolent thing he could do. Wanting him to accompany Jiang Chun to Yongzhou City was simply a dream. Perhaps after he met the moon god, his attitude towards Jiang Chun would change. In the end, Jiang Chun and the first brother escorted Ji Luyun into Yongzhou City. On the way, Ji Luyun gave out some rare treasures and told Jiang Chun to return to Yongzhou City normally. He did not want the people of the underworld to know that he was suppressed. To him, this was a humiliation, and to Luyun, it was even more humiliating. Jiang Chun was of course willing. After receiving some rare treasures, he only sealed Ji Luyun's god power. Then, the three of them entered Yongzhou City casually. With Ji Luyun accompanying him, the people of the underworld naturally did not dare to make a move against Jiang Chun. Moreover, there was the first brother, the main god, but many people were confused. Why was the holy son of the underworld's Luyun walking together with people of the living world? Could it be that he had some plan? Holy son, these two? Someone walked over. His status was also rather high. He was the holy son of a sect in the underworld, but he was still in the supreme realm towards Ji Luyun. It could even be said that he was in awe. These two are my esteemed guests. Ji Luyun's expression was calm, without any ripples. But his heart was filled with fear. If people saw that he was suppressed here, it would be too embarrassing. If this matter was spread out, how would he be able to live in the future? His face would hit the ground. Esteemed guests? Ah, how can people of the living world be esteemed guests of the underworld? Many people were confused, but they did not dare to say anything. Ji Luyun did not explain. After all, with his status, he did not need to care about these people. Then, he brought Jiang Chun into Yongzhou City's city lord's residence. Yongzhou City was the territory of one of Jiang Chen's 9 disciples. But it was a pity that after Jiang Chun fell, the people who followed him and his disciples all met with misfortune. Now, only his eldest disciple survived. Thus, after entering Yongzhou, Jiang Chun could not help but feel a trace of sadness. Images of the past flashed through his mind. At that time, he was so happy. But now, everything has changed. As time passed, things remained the same, but people had changed. Where are the ruins? After entering the main city, Jiang Chun naturally sat on the city lord's seat. Back then, he had done the same. After all, this used to be his disciples' territory. Fortunately, there was no one in the surroundings, so Ji Luyun didn't mind. After smiling embarrassedly, he sat on the other side. It's right below the city lord's mansion. Ji Luyun said, "Do you know what kind of place is below?" Jiang Chun was dumbfounded when he heard that. Old One also shook his head. In their eyes, Yongzhou City was Yongzhou City, the territory of Jiang Qin's disciple. Other than that, is there anything else special? The name of Yongzhou is not for nothing. Ji Luyan had a strange expression as he said, as living beings of the world of the living, you actually don't understand the history of Yong Prefecture? In any case, this is still the land of the world of the living, right? Don't keep us in suspense, speak. Jiang Qin said, before you speak, you have to agree to a condition of mine. Ji Luyun said solemnly, my life is in your hands right now. In order to protect myself, it's not too much for me to raise a few conditions, right? You still know that your life is in our hands? Then what qualifications do you have to negotiate with us? Jiang Qin said jokingly, you should be begging us right now. Once these words were said, Ji Luyun's expression instantly turned ugly. And he had to beg Jiang Qin? How was that possible? Although Ji Luyun had been suppressed now, his arrogance was still there. Wanting him to beg others, impossible. This is Yongzhou. It's very close to the two worlds of the living and the living. If I die here, the world of the living will definitely sense it. At that time, the emperor of the world of the living will attack. You won't be able to escape. Ji Luyun said solemnly. Why don't we discuss it properly? It's good for everyone. That depends on how you discuss it. Jiang Qin's eyes suddenly turned cold. Only because Ji Luyun was threatening him. Jiang Qin had never seen such a person. His life was in his hands, yet he dared to threaten him. However, Jiang Qin didn't care about it. He knew what was at stake here. After opening the ruins, we'll split the things inside equally. Moreover, after that, you can't hurt me at all and let me go. Ji Luyun said, split equally? Jiang Qin raised his eyebrows. It's originally my world of the living. Why should it be split equally with your world of the living? Your conditions are non-negotiable. Hearing this, Ji Luyun frowned, as if he knew that his request was too much. Although Yongzhou was now occupied by the world of the living, in the end this was still the territory of the living. The things here, in essence, were indeed of the living. How about 46? Ji Luyun said. 28. Jiang Qin's eyes congealed. 28. I can still save your life. This is already very worth it for you. 28. Aren't you being too unsightly? Ji Luyun's face fell and said, 37. Otherwise, no one can think about entering the ruins. At most, we'll fight to the death. 37. Jiang Qin frowned. After muttering a few times, he waved his hand and said, first, tell me what's in the ruins and how to enter the ruins. After I know these, we'll discuss how to split it. Otherwise, if I don't know anything, how can I negotiate with you? Ji Luyun nodded. What Jiang Qin said was correct. Following that, he talked about the ruins under Yongzhou City. It turned out that in the history of the Ninth Heaven God realm, there was an empire that rose in a short period of time, but was destroyed in an extreme period of time. It was like a flash in the pan. It did not leave many traces. Thus, many people in the future did not know about that empire. But unfortunately, when that empire was at its peak, it wanted to attack the world of the living. Thus, it had some connections with the world of the living. Thus, the world of the living knew a lot about that empire. According to the divinations of those almighty beings in the world of the living, after that empire disappeared, its inheritance was hidden under Yongzhou City. That empire was called the Tianyong Empire. Ji Luyun said, according to some information, that empire was able to rise in such a short period of time because they grasped a secret technique. That secret technique could create the power of a title. What? Create the power of a title? Jiang Qin was shocked. There was such a secret technique in the world. One must know that the power of a title was bestowed by the heavens. It was unique, and from ancient times until now, there was no one who could create it. Maybe it's not called creating, but stealing from the heavens. Ji Luyun explained. It's because of this secret technique that the Tianyong Empire was able to rise in such a short period of time. Unfortunately, they seem to have touched some taboo, and were destroyed in less than 100 years. Ji Luyun said. Chapter 982. The Sky Harmony dynasty was extremely powerful and dared to attack the netherworld at its peak. However, for some unknown reason, the Sky Harmony dynasty was destroyed by a mysterious power in less than 100 years. Some of the old monsters in the netherworld guessed that the Sky Harmony dynasty's secret technique was too heaven-defying. It attracted the attention of other powers and was destroyed. They thought that the Sky Harmony dynasty would disappear without leaving any traces behind. However, who would have thought that the two emperors of the netherworld would discover the underground ruins of Yongzhou City after entering Yongzhou City? They guessed that the Sky Harmony dynasty's inheritance might be in the ruins. Even the secret technique might be in there. After all, to any sect, ensuring the continuation of their inheritance was the most important thing. As long as the inheritance continued, one day, they would be able to reach the peak. Have you guys entered before? Jiang Chen asked. No. Ji Luyun shook his head. This is the Yang realm. The yin energy on our bodies is too heavy. Furthermore, there are many laws and daos of the Yang realm in the ruins. We can't enter. Oh, Jiang Chen said lightly and joked. You guys can't enter. So you need the living beings of the Yang realm to help you enter? You can understand it that way. Ji Luyun nodded his head, but still explained. But as long as the yin and yang are out of balance, the living beings of the Yang realm can enter the ruins. It's just a matter of time. The aura of the Yang realm and the Yang realm were different. When the living beings of the Yang realm were in the Yang realm, their bodies would feel unnatural. They would even feel like they were being burned by flames. Even their strength would be somewhat suppressed. However, as long as the yin and yang were in chaos and the balance was lost, this situation would disappear. At that time, the living beings of the Yang realm would be able to enter and exit the Yang realm freely, not to mention the Sky Harmony dynasty's ruins. Since the experts of the Yang realm have not descended yet, I can split the ruins equally with you guys. Ji Luyun said. When the yin and yang are in chaos and the experts of the Yang realm descend, I'm afraid that the Yang realm won't have a share in the ruins. Makes sense. Jiang Chen nodded his head and raised 2 fingers. I'll still say the same thing. Split it 20 to 80. Don't go overboard. Ji Luyun was anxious. Splitting the treasures into huge ruins 20 to 80. He couldn't accept it. After all, Yongzhou City was currently occupied by the netherworld beings. Moreover, if he did not tell Jiang Chen where the entrance to the ruins was, Jiang Chen would not be able to enter. However, Ji Luyun was also somewhat helpless. It was clear that he had the initiative, but his life was controlled by the other party. Right now, not to mention a 20-80 split, even if it was a 10-90 split, Ji Luyun would still have to agree. It's not a loss for you to split it 20 to 80. Jiang Chen responded. This is something that belongs to the mortal realm to begin with. I'm giving you a 20% discount, and you still think that it's too little? 28 it is. Ji Luyun pondered deeply for a moment before he finally gritted his teeth and agreed. To him, the treasures in the ruins were a small matter. It was naturally beneficial to get more of them. The most important thing was his life. After that, under Ji Luyun's lead, the 3 of them arrived at the underground prison of the city lord's estate. This place had been abandoned for a long time, and usually no one would come here. It was dark and damp, and also had a rotten smell that made people nauseous. The dungeon was not big, but there were rune arrays on the walls and floor. This was built a long time ago, and now many of the rune arrays here had lost their effectiveness. At the beginning, we thought that the rune arrays in this dungeon were used to imprison criminals. Ji Luyun said, I didn't expect that. These rune arrays were used to hide and protect the ruins. If not for the rune arrays here being a bit damaged, I'm afraid that even the Emperor of the Netherworld would find it difficult to discover the secret of this place. Saying that, Ji Luyun had already brought Jiang Chen, an old one, to the deepest part of the dungeon, in front of a water prison. Inside the water prison, a foul stench was emitted, and one could even see rotten bones. Maggots were wriggling on the bones, forming a layer of white, looking very disgusting. This don't tell me that the entrance to the ruins is here. Jiang Chen's hair stood on end. although maggots were like ants to cultivators. But with such a dense mass of maggots and a mouthful of stinky water filled with rotten flesh and bones, Jiang Chen really did not want to be contaminated. The entrance is below this water prison. Ji Liyun's expression was also very ugly. His hair stood on end. After all, the scene in front of him was too disgusting. How do we enter? Jiang Chen resisted the urge to vomit and asked. There is an array here. Take a closer look, and you will know. Ji Liyun pointed at the water prison. His expression was rather strange. When Jiang Chen heard this, he was also stunned for a moment. Following that, a glint appeared in his eyes as he stared at the water prison. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen's face turned green. He could tell that the rotten bones and maggots in the water prison were actually filled with runes and talismans. And the seemingly messy rotten bones and maggots were actually arranged in a strange way. It means the ruins can only be opened if these bones and maggots are arranged correctly? Jiang Chen asked, his stomach churned, and he almost vomited. He really wanted to know what the person who set up this array was thinking. How could it be so disgusting? The interests and hobbies of the ancients really make one cough. Ji Liyun said with a bitter smile. Then, here came the problem. How should this array be broken? Jiang Chen looked at it for a long time, but did not see any tricks. According to the calculation with divine sense, there are a total of 130,000 maggots here and 36 rotten bones. Every maggot and every skeleton can have an array, and they can be connected to other maggots. Ji Liyun said, but the order has been disrupted. As he spoke, Ji Liyun's face darkened, and he said, the most unacceptable thing is that there are restrictions here, and there is also a layer of inexplicable rules. If you want to correct the order of the array here, you can only do it yourself. Do it yourself? How do you do it? Jiang Chen was stunned, but in fact, he already understood in his heart. Under normal circumstances, when setting up an array or breaking an array, cultivators basically use their divine power to control it. There was no need to use their hands to touch those things. But now, use your hands to straighten it out. Ji Liyun had goosebumps. Looking at the extremely disgusting scene in front of him, his scalp tingled. Jiang Chen's body also stiffened. Even though he had seen many things, but at this moment, he was also a little afraid. This is too disgusting. Old One pinched his nose and said in a deep voice, Kid, you can't be deliberately tricking us, right? My life is in your hands. How would I dare to trick you? Ji Liyun said snappily. Just as he finished speaking, bubbles suddenly appeared under the dungeon water. Then, a head popped out from under the prison water. Chapter 983. After a series of bubbles, a head popped out of the water. Disgusting. Too ugly. Before Jiang Chen and the others could react, the man spat several mouthfuls of saliva and wiped his face with his hand. Not only was there rotten flesh on his face, even maggots were on his face. Blurred. Old One could not stand it anymore and vomited on the spot. Jiang Chen and Ji Liyun were not any better. Their mouths twitched, and their hair stood on end. The person wiped the rotten flesh on his eyes. When he saw the three people outside the water prison, his eyes lit up. He exclaimed excitedly, Jiang Chen? What? Jiang Chen was stunned. The person's face was covered in dirt, so he did not recognize him at all. But the next moment, just as Jiang Chen was puzzled, he saw the person jump out of the water and rush to Jiang Chen, giving him a big hug. F***CK. Jiang Chen's face darkened. With this hug, rotten flesh and maggots were all on him. There was also a stench that almost made Jiang Chen faint. Jiang Chen. The person hugged Jiang Chen and was still very excited. He even used Jiang Chen's sleeve to wipe the dirt on his face. At this moment, Jiang Chen finally saw it clearly. Muyid! Jiang Chen was stunned. He did not expect to meet this evil Taoist in such a place. Then, Jiang Chen's face darkened. He kicked Muyid away and said in disdain, Stay away from me. We haven't seen each other for a long time. I'm too excited. Muyid smiled embarrassedly. He knew that he was very dirty, but he did not care. He stood up and walked to Jiang Chen mysteriously. He pointed at the water prison and said, "Do you know what's down there?" "The ruins of the Tianyong dynasty," Jiang Chun said in annoyance. You know?" Muyuda was stunned. "Nonsense." Jiang Chun pinched his nose and took a few steps back. He really didn't want to get too close to Muyud. On the other side, Ji Luyan had been in a state of confusion the entire time. Ever since he came to Heaven's Wall City, the City Lord's mansion had been his residence. And with his strength, he actually didn't notice that someone had infiltrated the dungeon. What confused him the most was that there was really such a person in this world who was not afraid of dirt and evil, especially when he saw a few maggots hanging from Muyuda's hair. Ji Luyan closed his eyes and could not bear to look. "Why are you here?" Jiangchen asked. "I was just passing by this place when I saw how special this Heaven's Wall City was, so I came in to take a look. I didn't expect to find something good," Muyuda said excitedly. "It stinks to death." Blurg! All of a sudden, there were waves in the water. After a few strange cries, 2 drowned rats jumped out of the water. Not long after, another pitch-black creature that looked like a loach rushed out of the water. At this moment, Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He stared at the 3 creatures and his eyebrows twitched. Then, he looked at Muyuda with a gloomy face and said in a low voice, "These 3 guys." "Oh, these 3, Muyuda said. "After you left, I met them in the Eternal Fortress. Then, we traveled together and came to the divine realm of the 9th heaven together." "Boss? Master?" At this moment, the 3 creatures were glowing with divine light. After the dirt on their bodies was removed, their true appearances were revealed. A dragon, a phoenix, and a vermilion bird. Weren't they the 3 virtuous beings? 3 virtuous beings plus you, Muyuda, for virtuous beings together. That's pretty good. Jiangchen did not know how to describe his inner thoughts. However, he knew very well that the 4 of them together could probably turn the sky upside down. "You don't learn the good stuff, but you learn the bad stuff," Jiangchen said in a low voice. "What did you learn from this stinky Taoist?" "Tomb raiding, digging graves, picking up corpses," the 3 virtuous beings said in unison, especially Long Dade. As the holy ancestral dragon, he was supposed to be extremely noble. However, at this moment, he looked like a scammer. Muyuda is very extraordinary. His tomb raiding skills are unparalleled. Long Dade praised, "It's all thanks to him that we dug up so many tombs and obtained so many heavenly treasures. Otherwise, how could our cultivation have increased so quickly?" Not until then did Jiangchen realize that these 3 great virtues cultivations had all reached the F*king level of Lesser Lord. "You, how many graves have you robbed?" Jiangchen was speechless. This was going against the natural order. "Not many, about 30, Huang Dade said. Huang Dade said, "There are a few tombs that don't have anything inside, but there are a few that are extremely rich." "That's right. A few of them had good stuff hidden in them. If they were to be revealed, they would definitely attract the envy of others." Bird Dade nodded. When Jiangchen heard this, he quickly waved his hand. He did not want to hear about the glorious deeds of these virtuous beings anymore. This was too embarrassing. "Boss, you're an expert in formations. Come and help us break this formation. There's a huge tomb down there," Long Dade said excitedly. He pointed at the water prison and said, "Muyuda said that there's good stuff down there. Peerless treasures." Cough, cough. "My friends." Ji Luyan coughed a few times and interrupted. "Can you release the rotten flesh, corpses, and maggots first? If these things are missing, we won't be able to break this formation." When he said this, Muyuda and the others looked at Ji Luyan. "Oh, a creature from the netherworld? White and tender. It looks delicious." Long Dade and the other 2's eyes lit up, especially Bird Dade. Wisps of vermilion bird flames appeared on his body. He said excitedly, "Dean's supplement. It's perfect for my yin and yang." "You guys?" Ji Luyan was shocked. He looked at the saliva on the corner of Bird Dade's mouth and kept backing away. "Stop fooling around. He's the holy son of the netherworld's Deluyan," Jiangchen said unhappily. "You can't kill him." He's still useful. Oh, what a pity, Bird Dade mumbled. His saliva dripped onto the ground. By the way, did you guys hear that? I told you to release the maggots and rotten flesh that came out from the formation. Jiang Chun said in a low voice. There are runes on the rotten flesh and maggots. If a piece of rotten flesh or maggots is missing, don't even think about breaking this formation. All right. Muyuda and the others didn't care. The rotten flesh and maggots were nothing to them. When they picked up the rotten flesh and maggots on the ground, Jiang Chun saw Bird Dade spit out a few maggots. He muttered, "It's natural for birds to eat maggots. Why do you have to spit out the things you ate?" As he said that, he smacked his lips and said softly, "No wonder the taste is unique. It's because there are runes on it." Chapter 984. Jiang Chun was dumbstruck. What the hell was this? Bro, you're the Vermilion Bird King. How can you eat maggots? Could it be that you really think you're no different from a normal bird? Even so, you can't eat maggots, right? Your appetite has been a little tricky lately, Jiang Chun said with a dark expression. His stomach churned, and he almost threw up. Bird Dade didn't seem to mind. He even swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he pinched a maggot. This thing tastes really good. It tastes like Great Tao symbols. F***ck off? Jiang Chun couldn't help but kick Bird Dade. Hurry up and throw it back. Are these your friends? Ji Luyun also felt a chill run down his spine. He had never seen such disgusting living beings before. No, I don't know them. Jiang Chun immediately shook his head. These four deities were too embarrassing. In the end, all of the rotten meat and maggots were released back into the water prison through the efforts of Muyuda and the others. You're an expert in spell formations, so why don't you take a look? Muyuda suggested. If you think it's dirty, then you can use your mouth, and we'll do it. This spell formation won't be easy to crack. Jiang Chun felt a headache coming on. There were so many maggots and rotten meat. It was far too difficult to link them all together. One had to realize that every maggot and piece of rotten meat was a spell formation. There were so many spell formations, so there were countless combinations. Even though Jiang Chun was an expert in spell formations, it was still very difficult for him to crack such a complex spell formation. Can you crack it by force? Ji Luyun asked. I'm afraid not. Muyuda shook his head. We've tried before. The stone slab is even harder than immortal metal. Even a god king wouldn't be able to crack it open. Let's take it slow. Jiang Chun heaved a faint sigh. He had nothing urgent to do anyway. In the end, everyone stayed behind and stood off to the side. Jiang Chun stared at the maggots and rotten meat in the water, suppressing his disgust as he began to observe. Time passed by slowly. 10 days later. During this period, Jiang Chun really couldn't hold it in any longer and vomited water all over the floor. After all, when he was observing the formation, what he saw wasn't just the formation veins and talismans, but also the maggots and rotten flesh. Fortunately, in these 10 days, Jiang Chun finally comprehended this array formation. On this day, Jiang Chun began to give instructions. He had the four great virtues take action and arrange the maggots and pieces of rotten meat in the correct order. The four great virtuous beings didn't mind the filth either. They jumped into the sewage and began to pick up the rotten meat and maggots. Jiang Chun looked at the scene in front of him and suddenly had an illusion. Were the four great virtuosos playing with water? The three great virtuous beings are not a big deal, but Mu Yud is the lord of the four nether worlds, the great nether king. How could he be so unhygienic? Jiang Chun thought to himself. He had a new understanding of Mu Yud. Wang. A day later, when all the maggots and rotten meat were arranged neatly, a loud sound rang out. At the same time, clouds of white mist rose from the maggots and rotten meat. Under the white mist, divine light rose and fell. The light of the great Tao sprinkled down, and the sky was filled with beautiful flowers of the great Tao. Upon closer inspection, the maggots and rotten meat from before had changed. The rotten meat had turned into bones. They were like white jade, sparkling and translucent. They were also filled with divine power, and wisps of fragrance wafted out. The maggots, on the other hand, turned into crystals that shone brightly like miniature stars. Even the murky sewage had become clear at this moment. There was even a dense mist rising from it. It was like an immortal spring. This is their true form. Muya took a deep breath. He discovered that the sewage on his body had turned into fine wine. He couldn't help but lick and smack his lips. Then he gave a thumbs up and praised. Fresh. It's not maggots. It's rocks. Luckily, I didn't eat it. Otherwise, I might not be able to digest it. Bird Dade's eyes widened. The fat maggots in his eyes had turned into crystals. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. Bird Dade had planned to take all the maggots away after breaking the array. After refining them, he could eat them as snacks. But now, after a dozen breaths, a mysterious light shot up from the water. The place was scorching hot. In the blink of an eye, the water in the water prison disappeared. A huge green stone slab appeared below. There were ancient patterns carved on the green stone slab. There were even two ancient words, Tianyong, carved on the left and right sides of the slab. Before anyone could react, the stone slab suddenly split open, and a cave that led to the bottom appeared. The entrance to the ruin. This aura. There's definitely something good inside. The four Dades were very familiar with this aura, especially Mu Yud. When he smelled this aura, he was certain that there was definitely something good inside the ruin. According to him, this aura was called money. I wonder if there's any danger inside, Jiangchen muttered. Then his eyes lit up. He looked at Mu Yud and said, You're good at this. Go down and take a look. You're right. I'm the best at this. Mu Yud patted his chest and said, Wait for me here. I'll go and take a look. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Yud dashed into the cave. After a few breaths, a strange cry came from the cave. Then, Mu Yud rushed out with a horrified expression. There's someone inside. Mu Yud's face was pale, and his mouth was trembling. Someone? Jiang Chun was stunned. There was someone else in the ruin? A living person? Or a dead person? A living person. There's life aura. It's guarding the cave. Mu Yud said with lingering fear. The aura is extremely powerful. It's probably on par with a godly king. Jiang Chun and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. A living being on par with a godly king was guarding the cave? How were they going to enter? One had to know that among everyone present, the one with the highest cultivation base was the first boss, a peak over god. However, even a peak over god could not fight a godly king, unless it was a freak at the level of chaotic aura, who could kill a godly king with the power of overgod. Otherwise, Jiang Chun and the others could forget about entering. Are you sure? Ji Luyan frowned and said, If there's really a godly king inside, why wouldn't he chase after us? We're going to rob a tomb. Why would a tomb guard let you out? Mu Yud was also stunned when he heard that. He thought that Ji Luyan was right. However, he had seen with his own eyes that there was a living being standing in the cave. There was no mistaking the life aura that flowed out of that body. Why don't we go in and take a look? Mu Yud said softly. The more the merrier. You want to drag a few of us down with you, right? Jiangchen obviously knew what Mu Yud was thinking. Even if he died, he wanted to drag a few of them down with him. According to the divination of my ancestors in the netherworld, there are no living beings in the ruin, Ji Luyun said seriously. I have a great sage in the netherworld whose divination skills are at the peak of perfection. He has already divined this ruin. Chapter 985. The netherworld placed great importance on the ruins of the Sky Harmony dynasty. After all, there was a high possibility that the secret technique that could create the tidal power was hidden here. When this place was first discovered, the experts of the netherworld also received the news. There was even a great sage who personally made a deduction and confirmed that there was nothing wrong with this place. The so-called nothing abnormal naturally referred to the safety of this place. You will see it when we enter later. Mu Yud's eyes still had a trace of fear. He felt that this place was very evil. You are the king of hell after all. Haven't you seen enough ghosts and monsters? Jiang Chen teased. He felt that Mu Yud was being too cautious. You will know when we enter. Muyid said in a low voice. Finally, the few of them entered the cave together. The inside of the cave was not big. The walls on both sides were smooth and shiny. A material that looked like starlight shone on the walls, illuminating the cave. The few of them walked along the path in the cave. After walking for about 100 meters, they stopped. At this moment, Muyid hid behind everyone. His whole body was emitting cold air, and his back was cold. As for the other three great deities, after a short moment of absent-mindedness, they let out a few strange cries and hid behind Muyuda. Did you see it? At this moment, Muyud's voice was trembling. He squinted his eyes and looked at a figure not far away. Jiang Qin's scalp was also numb. After walking to this place, he saw the living being in front of him. After sensing it carefully, he found that the living being was indeed alive. Moreover, its eyes were open, and there was the light of the great Tao in its eyes. Impossible! The great sage made a deduction. Ji Luyun frowned and slowly retreated. Even the first great god, who was at the peak of the overgod stage, was furious. Cold sweat covered his forehead as he said, "It is at least a peak-level god king." He did not move. Jiang Qin looked very calm. He stood in the same spot and did not retreat. He was observing the living being. After a few breaths, Jiang Qin frowned and said in a low voice, "His soul is dead, but his body is not destroyed." "What do you mean? Is he dead or alive?" Everyone was confused, but Jiang Qin had already walked over. "Boss, be careful," Huang Dade reminded him. "That's a peak divine king. His soul has been extinguished, leaving only his physical body. His consciousness has disappeared," Jiang Qin explained. Just now, Jiang Qin had used a secret technique to see through the essence of this living being. His soul had already disappeared from the Sumeru within his body, but his physical body was filled with the essence of divinity, so he still had the aura of life. However, death was death. Right now, this creature could only be considered a walking corpse. To be more precise, it was a corpse that was in the process of gaining sentience, but had yet to gain sentience. It should be the tombkeeper left here by the Sky Harmony Empire. After such a long time, his lifespan finally ran out and his soul died. Jiang Qin guessed. Because his physical body was extremely powerful, his physical body wasn't destroyed after his soul was extinguished. He even gave birth to a divine substance and is currently transforming. "Boss, don't make wild guesses. What if—" Long Dade had a strange expression on his face. Before he could finish his sentence, his dragon whiskers were standing on end. The next moment, Long Dade ran away. He didn't even say a word. Very loyal. He turned and ran away. Then, Huang Dade and Niao Dade were stunned for a moment. Although they didn't know why Long Dade ran away, the two of them also turned and ran because of their trust in Long Dade. "Master, I think I saw that living being's eyes blink." Old One had a strange expression on his face. Just as Long Dade ran out, he saw that living being move. Even Ji Luyun's face turned pale. His lips trembled as he pointed at the living being and said, "He really moved." When Jiang Qin heard that, he stopped moving forward. His face was also pale, and cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He wasn't blind. Of course, he saw the eyelids of the living being move. However, he couldn't retreat even if he wanted to. This was because with the living being as the center, a domain had appeared. The domain's range wasn't large, but it just happened to cover Jiang Qin. Am I really that unlucky? Jiang Qin cursed in his heart. Previously, Jiang Qin had said that this was a corpse that was in the process of gaining sentience. It hadn't succeeded yet. However, he didn't expect that the corpse would give birth to a wisp of consciousness right here. Although the consciousness was very faint and shallow, in essence, this living being's body had already gained sentience. "You guys leave first," Jiang Qin said in a low voice. "You're not leaving?" Muyid asked worriedly. "I want to leave too." Jiang Qin's face darkened and said, "There's a domain here, and it's still expanding. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late." "Oh, then I'll take my leave." Muyid was very decisive. He didn't even ask about Jiang Qin before he turned and ran. Ji Luyun didn't hesitate either. Without another word, he disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Old One, on the other hand, was quite loyal. However, after being scolded by Jiang Chen a few times, he also left worriedly. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression was solemn. It was as if his entire body was being suppressed by a great force, and he couldn't move at all. Even the divine power in his body was flowing away. No, to be more precise, it was being devoured by that living being. This was a sign that the body had gained sentience. When a corpse gained sentience, it would absorb a large amount of heaven and earth origin chi, including the power and essence of the surrounding living beings. And now, Jiang Chen was in the same situation. He was being imprisoned by this living being's domain. The essence, energy, and even divine power in his body were slowly being devoured. However, Jiang Chen wasn't worried. He wasn't worried that he would be devoured to death. This was because this living being was extremely powerful when it was alive. Its body contained a lot of essence and had a very deep foundation. After gaining sentience, it probably didn't need much heaven and earth origin chi in essence. With Jiang Chen's abundant divine power and essence, he should be able to endure it. And the truth was just as Jiang Chen thought. After a dozen breaths, the living being stopped devouring. Then, its eyes began to open and close continuously, as if it was blinking. A ray of light appeared in its pupils. Its originally lifeless eyes gradually regained their luster. However, the domain was still there. Tianyong, Tianyong. After another hour, the living being could only speak the two words, Tianyong. Perhaps the imprint of the Tianyong dynasty was branded in its body. Even if its soul was extinguished and its memories disappeared, it would still subconsciously recall something. Just like that, Jiang Chen didn't dare to make a sound. He stood in place and could only wait. Where's this place? Who am I? Tianyong, is that my name? Half a day later, the living being was much more awake, and its consciousness gradually became more complete. Then it saw Jiang Chen. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and the living being suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Chen. Its incomparably beautiful face was right in front of Jiang Chen. There was also an orchid fragrance that seeped into one's heart. Chapter 986. Jiang Chen's pupils constricted, and his hair stood on end. He couldn't move, and couldn't even use the divine power in his body. Even his three Tao souls were imprisoned. Even the ever-changing heavenly lamp was extinguished. Under such circumstances, Jiang Chen could only resign himself to fate. Who are you? Who am I? The insufferably beautiful woman asked. Her eyes were filled with doubt. But more than that, they were as pure as water. Her former soul had disappeared, and her physical body was psychic. She had forgotten everything. However, her physical body had the instinct fragment imprint. She vaguely remembered something, but it was as ethereal as the clouds and mist. She couldn't capture it or see it clearly. Jiang Chen was at his wit's end. Since it was up to fate, he might as well lie. If I say I saved you, would you believe me? After all, when a person was forced to a dead end, he could do anything. Moreover, Jiang Chen wasn't a man with any moral integrity. Who am I? The woman didn't answer Jiang Chen's question. Instead, she kept looking for the answer she wanted. Jiang Chen was speechless and didn't know what to say. However, after a few breaths, Jiang Chen's eyes lit up and he made up a story. Your name is Tianyong. When you woke up just now, didn't you keep calling your name? The woman realized what he said and murmured, so my name is Tianyong. No wonder I have such a deep impression of this name. After saying that, the woman suddenly frowned and asked, Why am I here? My mind is blank. Oh, I see. When Jiang Chen saw that the woman didn't suspect him, he instantly felt confident. Things like swindling and swindling were just a piece of cake for him. After that, Jiang Chen started to explain seriously. You are the empress of the Tianyong dynasty, Jiang Chen said seriously. There was no trace of falsehood. How powerful was the Sky Harmony Empire back then? Unfortunately, it was destroyed by the Greater Thousand Worlds. The emperor fell, and the entire empire was destroyed. Only you survived. It's just that your injuries were too severe and your soul was damaged. Although you survived, your memories have all disappeared. At this point, Jiang Qin felt that his words were not convincing enough. His mind raced, and his eyes reddened. He hugged the woman and said excitedly, "Annie, I've been waiting for you for so long." At this moment, the woman was completely dumbfounded. She was hugged by Jiang Qin just like that, and her mind was also trying hard to recall. But after a long time, she still couldn't remember anything. However, when she saw Jiang Qin's excited expression and the sincerity in his eyes, she did not doubt him. After all, she had just been reborn, and everything was as white as a piece of paper. How could she suspect anyone? It was just like how the first person a newborn would see would be the person closest to it. This woman was no exception. However, she felt that something was amiss. "You said that it was the greater thousand worlds that destroyed my empire?" The woman asked. Sigh. Jiang Qin heard this and sighed heavily. His eyes were filled with grief. "They were all killed. You and I are the only ones left in the Tianyong dynasty." "Oh," the woman said softly, her expression incomparably calm. Jiang Qin was stunned for a moment before he reacted. This woman had just been reborn. She probably didn't even know what hatred and revenge were, right? At this moment, Jiang Qin was in high spirits. After that, Jiang Qin imparted some common knowledge to the woman, such as what was family, what was life and death, what was revenge and gratitude. In the end, the woman seemed to understand. Her delicate hands clenched into fists. Although her expression was calm, she still said, "I want to avenge my people. Yes, find those creatures from the greater thousand worlds and take revenge." Jiang Qin's acting became more and more realistic. He even had a hint of sobbing as he said, "Aunt, you may have forgotten, but I still remember how cruel the creatures from the greater thousand worlds were when they attacked the God realm. Your children are all dead." The woman was stunned for a moment. Then, she tilted her head, blinked her beautiful eyes, and asked, "Children?" Your son and daughter." Jiang Qin explained. "You and the emperor gave birth to them." As he spoke, Jiang Qin explained to the woman what children were and some common knowledge between men and women. He thought that these words would arouse the woman's hostility toward the greater thousand worlds. However, he didn't expect her brain to be special at this moment. She stared at Jiang Qin and asked, "How do you give birth to children? Can you and I do it?" Jiang Qin was rather confused. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. "Big sister, are you kidding me? I've told you so much, but that's not the main point." However, Jiang Qin finally understood that this woman was too pure and didn't know anything. This was undoubtedly a good thing for him. "I'll bring her with me in the future." Jiang Qin was counting his chickens before they hatched. He thought to himself that this was a peak divine king-level fighter. Aunt, let's not talk about how to give birth to children first. Can you undo the domain here? I can't move now." Jiang Qin smiled bitterly. "Oh." The woman nodded. Although she didn't know what the domain Jiang Qin was talking about was, she subconsciously put away the domain. This was a kind of origin consciousness. "Aunt, we'll go and get the inheritance left behind by the greater thousand worlds first. When our cultivation is stronger, we'll go and find that group of people from the greater thousand worlds to take revenge." Jiang Qin said seriously. "Inheritance? Where is it?" The woman asked. "It's just ahead. Aunt, come with me." Jiang Qin said. "Okay." The woman nodded without any objections. After all, she had been successfully brainwashed by Jiang Qin. After that, the two of them walked along the path in the cave. After a full 1,000 meters, they walked out of the cave. In front of them was an underground palace, filled with an ancient and vicissitude aura. In front of them, a dilapidated palace stood quietly. On both sides of the palace, there were statues with human heads and snake bodies. What race is this? Jiang Qin was curious. Why would there be such statues in the ruins of the Sky Harmony dynasty? Logically speaking, the Sky Harmony dynasty was built by the human race. Even if there were statues, they should be statues of the human race's ancestors, or the traditional divine beasts. However, there were rows of statues with human heads and snake bodies in front of them. Somehow, it felt a little strange. Wong! Suddenly, a series of deafening roars could be heard. Then, the rows of statues started to shake. The dust on their bodies fell off, and the aura of life appeared. Jiang Qin panicked. He stared at the statues and suddenly had a bad feeling. They're not statues. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Qin exclaimed. He saw one of the statues move. Chapter 987. There were a total of 18 human-headed snake-bodied statues. After the first statue moved, the rest of the statues started to shake as well. In just a few breaths, the mud on the 18 statues all fell off, and a strong aura of life emanated from their bodies. Qi. Accompanied by the sound of burning flames, the eyes of the statues suddenly opened. The light in their eyes was as bright as the sun. It was extremely bright and carried an aura that made people revere. Greetings, princess. Just as Jiang Qin was in shock, the 18 living beings knelt down and paid their respects to the woman. Their expressions were full of respect. At this moment, Jiang Qin was a little confused. What's going on? Who are these 18 living beings? Could the princess they were talking about be this woman whose body had gained sentience? However, this woman had lost her memory. She looked at Jiang Qin with confusion in her eyes and asked, "Who are they?" Jiang Qin heard this and opened his mouth, but did not say a word for a long time. What else could he say? Since these living beings called her princess, they must know her identity. Jiang Qin did not dare to talk nonsense now. I have just woken up and my memory is not complete. I don't know. Jiang Qin thought for a while and decided to play dumb. In this situation, if he talked nonsense, he might anger these living beings. We have been waiting for Princess for a long time. The golden age of the world is upon us. We hope Princess will open the gates of Tianyong and restore the glory of Tianyong, the leading living beings said. Then, the living beings behind him shouted, "Restore the glory of Tianyong." I have forgotten many things, the woman said directly. She pointed at Jiang Qin and said, "I only remember him now." Hearing this, Jiang Qin's face turned slightly red. What did she mean by only remembering him? It was obvious that Jiang Qin had fed her all kinds of fake memories. However, Jiang Qin heaved a sigh of relief. As long as this woman was on his side, there should be no problem. As expected, when these living beings heard this woman's words, they were first shocked, as if they were surprised that their princess had lost her memory. Then, they started to wonder who this young man in front of them was. Could it be an old acquaintance of the princess? However, since these creatures were able to guard this place, they must be the most trusted group of creatures of the Sky Harmony Empire. They did not care if the princess had lost her memories. They only knew to obey the will of their ancestors and protect Tianyong. And the princess's words were like an imperial edict right now. This is... The leader frowned as he looked at Jiang Qin, apparently unsure of how to address him. After all, according to their identities, they were the subordinates of the princess. On the other hand, Jiang Qin seemed to have an unusual relationship with the princess of the Sky Harmony Empire, but his cultivation was so low. "Your Honor, may I ask what happened to the princess?" After a few breaths of time, the leader of the living beings found a suitable way to address Jiang Qin. He even cupped his hands and bowed to Jiang Qin. His attitude and words were quite respectful. "She just woke up, so her memory isn't complete." Jiang Qin said, "Same for me. I just woke up, so I forgot some things." "I see." The living being was relieved, and he said seriously, "Protecting Tianyong and the princess is our duty. Don't worry, Your Honor. Since we have already come into being, we will protect the princess and you." Jiang Qin was stunned for a moment, and then he was overjoyed. Good fellow. He actually gained so many backers after a trip to the Tianyong ruins and some nonsense. At a glance, these 18 living beings with human heads and snake bodies were all peak chief gods. The one in the lead even reached half-step divine king realm. Now, the golden age had yet to descend. The cultivation of these living beings was enough to intimidate a region. In addition to the princess of Tianyong, who was a peak god king, Jiang Chun felt that if he went out, his life would at least be guaranteed. By the way, you mentioned opening the gates of Tianyong? Jiang Chun asked. What's inside? The legacy of the Sky Harmony Empire? Of course. We are guarding this place to wait for the princess's arrival, to open the legacy of the Sky Harmony Empire and restore Tianyong's glory. These living beings were excited. Back then, they were sealed here to guard the ruins, waiting for this day. How do we open it? Jiang Chun asked. Then he pointed at Princess Tianyong and said, she has lost her memory. There are some things that you need to teach her. We dare not. We dare not teach the princess. We fear. These living beings shook their heads hurriedly, but they still told Jiang Chun how to open the gates. The so-called Tianyong Gate was the dilapidated palace in front of them. The gate of the palace was tightly shut, and it was covered with runes and talismans. It was also surrounded by layers of formations and restrictions, which were as numerous as the stars in the sky. Jiang Chun took a rough look. If he couldn't find the correct method, it would take at least 10,000 years to open the gates. You mean that as long as we use her blood, we can open the gates? Jiang Chun asked. That's right. Only the blood of the royal family of the Sky Harmony Empire can open it. The leader nodded. Jiang Chun smiled when he heard that. If it was just blood, it would be much easier to deal with. Is that so? After a few breaths, under Jiang Chun's guidance, the Sky Harmony Palace Lord dripped a drop of blood on the gate. Then the blood sank into the gate. The runes and talismans on the gate, as well as the surrounding formations and restrictions, disappeared in an instant. Wong! Then, with a dull sound, the Tianyong Gate, which had been sealed for a long time, slowly opened. At this moment, Jiang Chun's eyes shone brightly, and he was extremely excited. This was because the moment the door opened, an extremely pure and powerful tidal power permeated the air from within. A dazzling radiance emerged from the gate. When the radiance dissipated, Jiang Chun saw the scene within the palace. Upon closer inspection, there were no decorations in the palace, only a simple and unadorned table. On the table, there was a fruit platter on which radiance was floating. Upon closer inspection, each radiance was a tidal power. Moreover, these tidal power were all Earth-grade. All Earth-grade titles. Jiang Chun was shocked. Even the inheritances of the top powers did not have so many Earth-grade titles, right? One had to know that Earth-grade titles were extremely rare, and there was not even a single Earth-grade title holder. Any cultivator who had an Earth-grade title was an outstanding talent in their respective powers, a giant of their generation. For example, in the Nine Heavens Divine World, if there were 1 or 2 Earth-grade title holders, they were already considered very strong. But now, the plate of Earth-grade title power in front of him was enough to create tens of Earth-grade title deities in a short period of time. This is the foundation and strength of the Sky Harmony Empire, Jiang Chun exclaimed. The Sky Harmony Empire was too terrifying, but more importantly, it was mysterious. Chapter 988. Other than being bestowed by the heavens, tidal powers could also be inherited. As long as someone was willing to sacrifice themselves and give their tidal powers to others, it would suffice. However, once the tidal powers were given away, one's Tao fruit would crumble and die, without a doubt. Furthermore, for cultivators with high-grade titles, who would want to give up everything they had to help others. Furthermore, battles between cultivators were basically battles of life and death. Even if one wanted to give their tidal powers to others, it was sometimes difficult to do so. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would think of this before they died, hoping to pass down their tidal powers. However, under normal circumstances, it would be too late. At this moment, Jiang Chun was completely dumbfounded by the plate of Earth-grade titles in front of him. Where did these tidal powers come from? Were they passed down by the ancestors of the Sky Harmony dynasty? However, it was only 100 years since the Sky Harmony dynasty was established and destroyed. How many Earth-grade cultivators could be born in 100 years? Not to mention passing down their tidal powers. In that case, there was only one possibility for the tidal powers in front of him. It was related to the secret technique of the Sky Harmony dynasty. At this moment, Jiang Qin's eyes were no longer focused on the plates of Earth-grade titles. He was searching for the secret technique of the Sky Harmony dynasty. Princess, back then, the emperor knew that the Sky Harmony dynasty would face a great calamity. Therefore, before the dynasty was destroyed, he gathered many powerful cultivators from the royal family to steal these Earth-grade titles, the leader of the group said. With the power of these titles, the Sky Harmony Empire will be able to rise again in a short period of time, the leader said. Oh, the lady said softly and nodded calmly. After all, everything was so foreign to her. Some words were even incomprehensible to her. What was rising again? What was a dynasty? She couldn't understand it in a short period of time. Princess, your memories are incomplete. I'll help you keep these things first, Jiang Qin said. As soon as he said that, the eyes of these human-headed snake-bodied beings turned cold. One had to know that these Earth-grade titles were the foundation of the Sky Harmony dynasty's rise again, and they had never seen Jiang Qin before, so they were naturally wary of him. How could they give these tidal power to Jiang Qin? However, before these creatures could object, the woman calmly nodded and said, "Then I'll give it to you." As soon as the princess said this, these creatures were at their wits' end. They knew that the princess had lost her memory, but they could only obey. After all, their existence was to obey the will of the Sky Harmony Empire and the will of the Sky Harmony Empire's royal family. Even if the princess was immortal now, as long as she spoke, it would be an imperial edict. Is there nothing else? Jiang Qin asked. That's all, the leader said. These are enough to allow the Tianyong Empire to rise in a short period of time. Where's the inheritance? Jiang Qin was puzzled. Jiang Qin wouldn't believe that there were only these tidal forces in this palace, even if he was beaten to death. The inheritance is in the princess's memory, branded in her soul. The leader said, it's a secret that can't be passed down in any form. It can only be passed down through the soul. As soon as he said this, Jiang Qin's heart turned cold. Soul inheritance? What kind of joke is this? The soul of the princess of the Sky Harmony dynasty had long been extinguished. Naturally, the inheritance was gone too. He originally thought that he could obtain the heaven-defying secret technique of the Sky Harmony dynasty, but he didn't expect to only get these Earth-grade titles. Although Earth-grade titles were equally precious, they paled in comparison to the secret technique. Forget it, forget it. One must know how to be content, Jiang Qin sighed. Princess, when the Sky Harmony gate opens, the array here will be activated, the leader said. The leader said, it won't be long before this place becomes a forbidden area, and it can even become a holy land for cultivation. Oh, the woman said softly, her face still indifferent. Perhaps she still couldn't understand these words. Fortunately, Jiang Qin was here. At this moment, his eyes shone with a cunning light. After observing the surroundings, he said seriously, this place is good. It's suitable for the Sky Harmony dynasty to rise again. Wang. As soon as he finished speaking, rumbling sounds suddenly came from the underground palace. Then, runes appeared in every corner of the underground palace, and the rules of the great Tao and order appeared. It was like a dense fog that carried the divine Tao chains and pierced into the void. Jiang Qin could clearly feel that these divine Tao chains were sealing off this part of the world. They wanted to create a restricted area that wouldn't allow any other living beings to enter. Moreover, as the runes continued to rise into the air, a gigantic formation was formed. The moment the array was formed, the vital energy of heaven and earth was sucked over. Even the power of the divine Tao flowed endlessly into the underground palace. In just a few breaths' time, spiritual herbs sprouted and spiritual flowers bloomed in the originally dilapidated underground palace. Even the heavenly treasures that were originally buried here were born. The Sky Harmony dynasty is really something. Jiangchen couldn't help but praise. Thinking about it, the top experts of the Sky Harmony dynasty must have predicted that there would be such a calamity. Therefore, they had already made preparations to ensure that the legacy of the Sky Harmony dynasty would not be destroyed. However, they probably didn't expect that the princess, who was the hope of the Sky Harmony dynasty, would meet with an accident and have her soul destroyed. Now, to be precise, the foundation of the Sky Harmony dynasty was still there, but the most important legacy secret technique had disappeared. It's a pity that such a secret technique is missing in this world. Jiang Chun sighed in his heart. Princess, you can rest here peacefully. When your memory recovers, we'll come out in one go. The leader said. I'll listen to him. The princess said softly and pointed at Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun naturally didn't have any objections. However, he had to go out for a while. Since he had obtained so many Earth rank titles, he naturally had to send them to the Glory World Academy and hand them over to Jianglu and the rest. This was also the first path for them. Of course, he also had to inform Mu Yud and the rest that he was safe. Just as Jiang Chun was about to leave, he heard the leaders say, Princess, the Sky Harmony dynasty's gate has opened. His Highness will probably wake up soon. When the time comes, you and your sister will be reunited. With our support, the Sky Harmony dynasty will definitely return to its former glory. What the F*** CK? There's another prince? Jiangchen was shocked. Jiangchen didn't believe that the prince's soul had also been destroyed. Then, when the prince woke up and found out that Jiangchen had tricked the princess of the Sky Harmony dynasty and taken away all the Earth rank titles, wouldn't he skin Jiangchen alive? At the thought of this, Jiangchen didn't dare to stay any longer. He immediately walked out of the underground palace. However, after a few steps, Jiangchen saw that the princess of the Sky Harmony dynasty had followed him. Why are you following me? Jiangchen asked. Chapter 989. There was only one thought in Jiangchen's mind, and that was to escape with his Earth tier title. As for Princess Tianyong, let her be. Jiangchen had duped all the people he should dupe, and he had duped all the people he shouldn't dupe. He didn't have anything else to dupe anymore. Besides, there was still a prince in the Tianyong dynasty. If the prince woke up and found out about this, Jiangchen would be skinned alive even if he did not die. I don't know them, Princess Tianyong said. I want to go with you. Jiangchen's face darkened. He really wanted to reject her. However, Princess Tianyong was a peak stage divine king. What if he angered her by rejecting her? You guys take good care of the princess. She has lost her memory and is not fit to go out. Jiangchen looked at the living beings with snake bodies. However, what made Jiangchen feel hopeless was that these living beings actually agreed to let Princess Tianyong follow Jiangchen. They wanted Princess Tianyong to go out and see the world and familiarize herself with it. As for the 18 living beings, they needed to stay here and protect Prince Tianyong, who had yet to wake up. Then, all right, Jiangchen had no choice but to agree. After that, the two of them walked out of the underground palace and returned to the underground prison through the tunnel. When they returned, they saw that the entire underground prison was filled with arrays. Seals, enchantments, arrays, and even chains of runes were all squeezed together. At the same time, the four virtuous beasts looked nervous as they stared at the water prison, as if they were guarding against something. Ji Luyan was pressed to the side by the first brother, whose eyes were filled with worry. Boss? Master? At this moment, when everyone saw Jiangchen come out, they all exclaimed in surprise. However, when they saw Princess Tianyong beside Jiangchen, they all had goosebumps. Especially Mu Yud, who screamed, "Activate the arrays! Suppress her!" Boom! As soon as he said that, the arrays around them were activated. Chains of runes descended and went straight for Princess Tianyong. Obviously, they had made preparations to prevent Princess Tianyong from coming out. Don't! Jiangchen hurriedly said, but it was too late. Runes flashed all over the sky, and the chains of the great Tao pierced through the void like dragon bones. But they stopped in front of Princess Tianyong. After that, out of instinct, Princess Tianyong waved her delicate hand, causing the formation here to collapse and the chains of the grand Tao to disperse. What are they doing? Princess Tianyong asked with a puzzled expression. They are welcoming you, Jiang Chun hurriedly explained. He even gave Mu Yud and the others a meaningful look. Then his expression turned serious. He pointed at Princess Tianyong and said seriously, "This is my aunt, the Princess of the Sky Harmony Empire." Aunt? Princess of the Sky Harmony Empire. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Why did he suddenly have an aunt after a trip to the underground palace? What the hell was going on? However, Muyuda and the others didn't dare to make a sound now. They could all tell that Princess Tianyong was extremely powerful, a peak divine king. "What's wrong with you? Are you all right?" Muyuda asked telepathically. Jiangchen roughly explained what had happened in the underground palace to Muyuda. This time Muyuda was excited. He walked up to Princess Tianyong as if they were familiar with each other. With sparkling tears in his eyes, he clasped Princess Tianyong's delicate hands and said in a sincere and touching voice, "Aunt, I'm also your nephew." At this moment, even Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. "What are you doing? I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen such a shameless person. Could it be that having an aunt is a trend now? She's a peak divine king. It's not a loss for me to acknowledge her as my aunt." Muyuda's thoughts were very realistic. He was even thinking about when he would bring this new aunt of his to Rabatum. After all, with a peak divine king with them, their safety would be guaranteed. "Aunt, I've finally met you. I'm Longdade. Aunt." In the next moment, something that made everyone even more confused happened. The three great virtuous beasts also rushed over with snot and tears running down their faces. It was a very touching scene. They kept calling her Annie. It was so F***king affectionate and smooth. Jiang Chen blushed. He thought to himself, "Why are the people around me so immoral?" Moreover, she was a human. How could a dragon, a phoenix, and a vermilion bird have a human aunt? "You bunch of people, don't you know how to write the word face?" Ji Luyun said in annoyance. Moreover, do you really think she's a fool? Who would believe such words? However, just as Ji Luyun finished speaking, he was dumbfounded. Princess Tianyong nodded calmly and said, "Oh, we're all a family." Ji Luyun blinked. He was a little confused. Is she really that stupid? All right, let's leave this place first," Jiang Chen said. After all, this was the territory of the netherworld creatures. They could not stay here for long. But at this moment, Ji Luyun's face darkened and said, "What did you get in the underground palace? According to the previous conditions, you should get 20%. 20%? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said jokingly, "Ask my aunt if she agrees." "You!" Ji Luyun was instantly terrified. "Ask your aunt? Do you dare?" No matter how strong Ji Luyun was, he did not dare to challenge a peak divine king. "You're too much of a bully," Ji Luyun said in a deep voice. "How am I bullying?" Jiang Chun said jokingly, "I'll keep your life. I'll take the things away. See you later." After saying that, Jiang Chun asked the first brother to undo the seal in Ji Luyun's body. Then, the group of people walked out casually. The netherworld did not have any supreme powerhouses descending now, let alone a divine king. With Princess Tianyong accompanying them, Jiang Chun and the others were naturally full of confidence. They could almost do whatever they wanted in Yongzhou City, especially the three great virtuous beasts. They were flapping around happily. "Master, where are we going now?" the first brother asked. "Let's go to Glory World Academy first and send something over," Jiang Chen said, a cold light flickering in his eyes. He looked at the first brother with a serious expression and asked, "Do you want to take revenge?" "Revenge?" The first brother was stunned for a moment. Then the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed. Back then, after Jiang Chen died, the entire Tenshin Shinzo was slaughtered. Now, He was the only one who survived. I want nothing more than to destroy the orthodoxies of those 36 sovereigns, tear them into pieces, grind their bones, and scatter their ashes. The first brother said coldly. However, the first brother was clear about his strength. He did not fear any peak divine king, but the other 36 people joined forces. Moving one person was moving 36 people. It was not that he did not want to take revenge, but it's time to make a move. The debts that should be settled have to be settled. A cold light flickered in Jiang Qin's eyes, as if the sharp sword that had been sealed for a long time was about to be unsheathed. Chapter 990. Back then, when Jiang Qin was reborn, he had sworn that he would use the blood of the 36 over-gods as a sacrifice to those who had died for him. Now, it had been some time since he returned to the continent of the 9 clouds. Although Jiang Qin's cultivation was not high, his battle strength was extremely strong. In addition, with the rules set by the world's edge, Jiang Qin felt that it was time for revenge. Of course, directly attacking the overgod of light and the others was obviously impossible. Although the 36 overgods were usually at odds with each other and even wanted to destroy each other, they would still work together at critical moments. Moreover, the world's edge had set a rule that the strong could not bully the weak. If Jiang Qin fought against the strong, the other party could also ignore the rules and bully the weak. At that time, things would be troublesome. Therefore, revenge could not be done in one go. It had to be done slowly. After that, Jiang Qin and the others used the teleportation formation in Yongzhou City to enter Songzhou. The current Songzhou was enveloped by many formations and had been sealed off from the rest of the world. However, Jiang Qin knew that the living beings in Songzhou would definitely sense his arrival. As expected, the moment Jiang Qin appeared in Songzhou, the gray-haired old man's voice sounded in Jiang Qin's ears. "You're back?" The gray-haired old man asked. "Do you need me to activate the formation for you?" "I don't plan to return to the Glory World Academy. This time, I'm here to deliver something," Jiang Qin said. After that, Jiang Qin placed more than 10 Earth-grade tidal powers in front of him and said, "Senior, please help me pass these Earth-grade tidal powers to Jiang Lu and the others." When he said that, the gray-haired old man could not help but be stunned for a moment, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. More than 10 Earth-grade tidal powers? Even the world's edge did not have so many. "Where did you get them?" the gray-haired old man asked. "Senior, don't ask about this." Jiang Qin shook his head. Naturally, he would not tell the old man about the Sky Harmony dynasty. After all, in Jiang Qin's heart, he did not completely trust Tianya. One had to know that ever since Jiang Qin came into contact with the world's edge, he had only met 2 people. One was the gray-haired old man, and the other was Zi Xiao. However, Jiang Qin didn't have the heart to trust a force that he had only met with 2 of them. For example, there were a total of 10 disciples in the West Hall. Excluding the chaotic aura stage, they only needed 9 tidal powers. However, the reason why Jiang Qin took out more than a dozen pills was because he wanted to please Tianya. After all, they were now in Tianya's territory. If they gave Tianya some benefits, Jiang Lu and the others would be able to live more comfortably. Furthermore, if he gave out some Earth-class titles, the gray-haired old man would naturally do his best to help him. Otherwise, who knew if the gray-haired old man would keep these tidal powers when they were given out? "Aren't you afraid that I'll take these tidal powers for myself after taking them?" the gray-haired old man said. "These are all Earth-class titles. Even Tianya doesn't have so many. Send 9 to the West Hall. I'll give the rest to Tianya." Jiang Qin smiled and said, "Senior, is this good? You know how to do things." The gray-haired old man smiled. Immediately, the tidal powers in front of Jiang Qin disappeared. The gray-haired old man used a great magical power to directly capture them. He passed through the formation and entered Songzhou. "Don't you plan to come back? The outside world is very chaotic now, and Tianya has sealed the mountain. I'm afraid that not many people will abide by the rules set back then," the gray-haired old man asked. It seemed that because he had received benefits from Jiang Qin, The gray-haired old man was now more concerned about Jiangchen. If you're in danger outside, you might as well come back. With your talent, there's no need for you to wander outside. Come back and cultivate in peace. When the golden age comes, you'll naturally have the strength to stand on your own in this world, the gray-haired old man advised. I can stand on my own, but what about them? Jiangchen sighed. They came to the ninth heaven divine world from the godless continent with me. They don't have any foundation. I have the memories of my previous life, so I can be considered to have some foundation. But what do they have? If I don't do anything for them and don't let them become stronger, could it be that I'm going to watch them fall in the golden age? When the gray-haired old man heard this, he also sighed heavily. He also understood that Jiangchen was right. Even a peak divine king might not be able to protect himself in the golden age. Even an emperor-level expert like Zishao wouldn't dare to casually make a move in the golden age. Otherwise, if Zishao was really invincible, how could Tinya seal the mountain? Senior, then I'll leave it to you. Goodbye, Jiangchen said softly. Then he led a group of people and left the place. And just as Jiangchen was delivering the tidal power, a shocking change happened in Yongzhou City. In the city lord's mansion of Yongzhou City, the array formation and restriction in the underground palace continued to expand. In a short half a day, it actually covered half of Yongzhou. Under these array formations and restrictions, all living beings were forcefully expelled. Even Ji Lian found it difficult to resist. Just like this, in a day's time, the entire Yongzhou was enveloped by a huge array formation barrier, expelling all living beings and turning it into a forbidden area. Damn it, what did that fellow do in the ruins? How could such a thing happen? Ji Liuyun's face was pitch black, and his mood was extremely bad. One had to know that the underworld had already discussed it. When the yin and yang were in chaos, all the living beings of the underworld would descend into the yang realm and use Yongzhou as a stronghold. But now, this stronghold had not even warmed up yet, and it was gone. Most importantly, Harmony Prefecture had been destroyed by him, Ji Liyun. Furthermore, he did not know the reason behind it and was inexplicably expelled. At that time, when the group of almighty experts from the underworld asked, he, Ji Liyun, would not know anything. Holy Sun, where should we go now? Yeah, we need a place to stay. The group of living beings from the underworld was in a mess. Now, they could be said to be homeless. The closest place to this place should be Pingzhou. Let's go there. Ji Liyun thought for a moment and said, Pingzhou doesn't have any top forces, and with our special identities, even if we go there, the local forces won't dare to do anything to us. At most, we'll start a war. What war? As far as I know, the strongest cultivator in Pingzhou has just entered the Overgod realm. There aren't any experts there. We'll just sweep through them if we go there. In the end, Ji Liyun and the rest decided to head to Pingzhou. At this moment, in front of the profound Yang Palace in Pingzhou, Jiangchen and the rest stood there. In front of them were dozens of experts from the profound Yang Palace. All of them had solemn expressions, and a few of them were still covered in blood. Their injuries were not light. Looking around, many people had already been killed, and blood dyed the mountain gate of the profound Yang Palace red. Profound Yang Palace, a subordinate force of the Overgod of Light's faction, said the first old man in a deep voice as his killing intent roared like a black wind. Chapter 991. The profound Yang Palace was one of the subordinate forces of the Radiant Master God. The cultivators in this force didn't have high cultivations, but they were good at flattery and sucking up to others. Back then, the profound Yang Palace had just become the subordinate of the Radiant Master God and coincidentally met with Jiangchen's death. In order to ascend the throne, this force spared no expense and hunted down the Tenshin Shinzo. According to what the first brother knew, Jiangchen's sixth disciple in his previous life had died in the hands of the profound Yang Palace. There was also a divine spiritual cultivator who had been ambushed by the assassins hired by the profound Yang Palace. Otherwise, how could a divine spiritual cultivator have died so easily. Now that everyone had joined forces, it was time to settle old and new scores. Tianchun. The people of the profound Yang Palace were terrified. Some were trembling, while others wanted to escape into the void. However, this place had already been sealed by Jiang Chen's array. With the first brother and Princess Tian Yong present, these people couldn't escape at all. Tianchun. The profound Yang Palace belongs to the Radiant Master God. If you dare to touch us, the Radiant Master God won't let you off. Someone trembled. Even now, they still wanted to use the Radiant Master God to intimidate Jiang Chun. In response, Jiang Chun sneered and said, "The Radiant Master God has already sealed the mountain. Does your Radiant Master God still have the time to care about you?" With that, Jiang Chun glanced at the first brother and Princess Tianyong. "If the Radiant Master God comes today, I'll make sure he doesn't return." Tianchun, don't be so ruthless. Back then, we were only hindered by the Radiant Master God and hunted down the Tenshin Shinzo. It wasn't our will. Someone defended. The killing intent on the first brother's body became even stronger. He stared coldly at the upper echelons of the profound Yang Palace and said, "It wasn't your will?" Ha! Back then, the divine spiritual cultivator was severely injured and died because of that. My sixth junior brother also died in the hands of the profound Yang Palace. None of this was your will. Faced with the first brother's questioning, the upper echelons fell silent. They knew since Jiang Chun had come that day, they should put an end to this matter. "Can you give us a chance?" At this moment, the profound Yang Palace master walked out with guilt and remorse in his eyes. He knew that what he had done back then had indeed gone overboard. Now, he was repentant and regretful. He hoped that Jiang Chun would spare them. However, Jiang Chen's expression was so calm, like a pool of stagnant water. No one could tell whether he was happy, angry, or sad. He swept his gaze across the members of the profound Yang Palace and waved his hand. "Kill them. Tianchun, how dare you? Either way, we're going to die. Let's fight." At this moment, the group of people from the mystic Yang Palace no longer put on an act. Each and every one of them had a sinister look on their faces. Some of them even chose to self-detonate, wanting to perish together with Jiang Chun. However, in the entire Dark Yang Palace, the palace master with the highest cultivation base was only a lower-rank lord. Even if these people fought with their lives on the line, they were still ants in front of Old One and Princess Tianyong. In the end, Old One attacked. Not only did he collapse the Dark Yang Palace's main hall, but he also killed the higher-ups of the Mystic Yang Palace. "What about the rest?" Old One asked. "You have to dig up the roots to cut the weeds," Jiang Chun said softly. Then he smiled bitterly. However, the matter of chasing after Tenshin Shinzo back then was not up to these disciples to decide. Moreover, with their cultivation bases, what ability do they have to chase after Tenshin Shinzo? "Master, are we going to let them go?" Old One frowned. He was very unwilling. One had to know that Tenshin Shinzo had been destroyed back then. Now, in this world, only Jiang Chun and him were left of the original Tenshin Shinzo. Old One's heart was filled with resentment and killing intent. "It has nothing to do with them." Jiang Chun sighed. "If they want to take revenge for the Mystic Yang Palace in the future, then kill them. If they don't make any mistakes, then everything will be over." After saying that, Jiang Chun turned around and said softly, "They can do things like killing everyone, but we can't. Otherwise, what's the difference between us and them?" "Master is right," Old One said softly. Finally, the group left the Mystic Yang Palace. Not long after Jiang Chun and the rest left the Mystic Yang Palace, a ray of holy light appeared in the collapsed ruins. Then, the projection of the Sovereign of Light appeared. After all, the Mystic Yang Palace was a force under his command. Now that it was destroyed, the Sovereign of Light naturally sensed it. However, now that the Mystic Yang Palace was sealed, he couldn't come out. "Is it time for revenge?" The projection of the Sovereign of Light said softly. The holy light on his body fluctuated, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Then his projection disappeared. However, half a day later, the subordinate forces of the Sovereign of Light received the news one after another. All the major forces gathered in the southern part of Ping Province, with the mystic Yang Palace as the leader, and established a stronghold here. Moreover, they also received the Sovereign of Light's decree to kill Jiang Chun at all costs. Isn't the Sovereign of Light being too careful? If Emir Tian Chun comes to the mystic Yang Palace, he won't be able to return. That's right. My mystic Yang Palace isn't as weak as the mystic Yang Palace. Now, an ancient god king has awakened, and the palace master has even stepped into the ranks of upper-ranked chief gods not long ago. If Tian Chun dares to come, my mystic Yang Palace will dare to kill him. At this moment, in the mystic Yang Palace, the palace master and a group of upper echelons were talking big, not taking Jiang Chun seriously at all. At the same time, the experts from the other forces also had the same attitude. After all, in their eyes, how strong could the reborn Jiang Chun be? Not to mention an ancient god king. Any random chief god could take Jiang Chun's life. Of course, they weren't stupid. They knew that since Jiang Chun could destroy the mystic Yang Palace, he definitely had helpers by his side. However, they still felt that the Sovereign of Light was being too careful. Reporting to the palace master, the beings of the netherworld have entered Ping Province and swept through all the way. They have already occupied half of Ping Province. At this moment, someone rushed into the palace with a panicked expression. As soon as this was said, the group of people in the palace became nervous. For them, Jiang Chun wasn't a threat at all, but the creatures of the netherworld terrified them. Are there any supreme experts in the netherworld? Someone asked. No. The informant shook his head and said, but there's someone who calls himself the Holy Son of the netherworld's flowing cloud. He's a god with extremely strong combat strength. Someone saw him kill an intermediate chief god with his own hands. Hearing this, the people in the palace suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Some even had contempt in their eyes as they said, he's just a god with a title. How strong can he be? I thought an emperor of the netherworld had descended. TSK, just a bunch of ants. The mystic Yang Palace master chuckled. If they want to make trouble, let them. We just need to follow the Sovereign of Light's wishes and guard this place until Tian Chun delivers his head to us. But are we really going to let those beings of the netherworld do as they please? This is the Yang Realm's territory, after all. As Yang Realm cultivators, shouldn't we do something? Someone asked. Chapter 992. Yin and Yang opposed each other. As living beings from the Yang realm, they were naturally displeased with the netherworld. Some people wanted to take action and expel the netherworld living beings from Ping Province, or even kill them. However, they had to consider the unspoken rules at a time like this. The strongest person from the netherworld in the Yang realm was Ji Luyun, a titled deity. If they wanted to deal with him, they could only mobilize titled deities. However, they had also received intelligence that Ji Luyun could kill an intermediate chief god. Now, there was not a single titled deity in Dark Forest Temple who could kill an intermediate chief god. If they really wanted to attack Ji Luyun, they would have to mobilize at least an upper-ranked chief god. However, that would be breaking the rules. Once the rules were broken, when the netherworld powerhouses descended, the rules would no longer exist, and the ordinary people in the Yang realm would suffer. Even if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up, said the temple master of Dark Forest Temple. We're only responsible for dealing with Tian Chun. We don't have to care about anything else. But are we just going to watch the netherworld living beings do whatever they want in the Yang realm? Someone frowned, still feeling very uncomfortable. What can we do? Do we need upper-ranked chief gods to take action against Ji Luyun? Someone smiled bitterly and said, we also have descendants and disciples who don't have high cultivation bases. If we break the rules now, when the Yin and Yang worlds go to war in the future, our descendants and disciples will all suffer. Sigh. Everyone sighed, feeling deeply helpless. There were also some who looked melancholy, wondering why there weren't any prodigies like Ji Luyuan in the Yang realm. Do you think the heirs of the Emperor God's clans and the holy sons of the top factions can fight against Ji Luyuan? If they can, why aren't they taking action? Someone asked doubtfully. Who would be willing to let their holy son's heir take the risk? It's fine if we can beat them, but if we can't, we'll lose a holy son at the very least. At the very least, we'll lose our family's reputation. Someone explained, those God Emperor clans, the top forces, value their reputation more than their lives. After this person said that, the temple fell silent at once. Actually, these people all understood why the top factions didn't take action. However, understanding was one thing, but they were still displeased. Which factions are left in Ping Province? At this moment, in the eastern part of Ping Province, Ji Luyuan was leading a group of netherworld creatures to conquer the entire Ping Province. The other factions don't have much strength. Only the mysterious Forest Hall is left. Someone took a look at the map and said, this force seems to be under the command of the sovereign god of light, and is somewhat related to the Light Palace as well. Oh, Ji Luyuan said softly with a smile on his face. Sounds pretty strong. Yes, there are ancient god kings in the organization, as well as quite a few sovereigns. There are also a few upper-tier sovereigns, someone said. Ji Luyuan nodded when he heard this. After a moment of consideration, he said to everyone, all of you find a place to settle down first. I'll go take a look at Dark Forest Hall. Holy Son, you're going alone, someone said worriedly. It's fine. Both sides have tacit rules, so those chief gods won't dare to attack me. Ji Luyuan was very confident, but when he said that, Jiang Qin's image involuntarily popped up in his mind. It was this guy who didn't care about the rules at all. He actually allowed Old One and Moon Xiangqian to suppress him. This matter had to be settled sooner or later. Holy Son, there's one more thing. Originally, there was a Dark Forest Hall in Ping Province, but for some reason, it was destroyed. Someone frowned. We didn't do anything, so it should be someone else's doing. What does it have to do with us? The more vicious the internal strife in the Yang realm, the more beneficial it is for the netherworld, Ji Luyuan said with a smile. Then, Ji Luyuan got up, and rainbow light bloomed from his body like a rainbow as he flew in the direction of Dark Forest Hall. And just as Ji Luyuan was heading toward Dark Forest Hall, Jiang Qin and the others were also flying toward it. At the same time, in a small world in the Yang realm, the Sovereign of Light was cultivating in seclusion here. He wanted to become a God King before the arrival of the Golden Age and be one step ahead of others. However, his mind had been unstable these few days, and he kept having a feeling that something big was about to happen. As a peak chief god, he had a divine ability to foresee the future, which originated from the great Tao laws. And today, this feeling grew stronger and stronger, making him restless and unable to calm down to cultivate. I'm in the Temple of Light, so nothing can happen here. The Sovereign of Light frowned and said softly, could it be outside? At the thought of this, the Sovereign of Light's eyes narrowed. Holy light erupted from his body, and a divine consciousness rushed out of the Temple of Light. The divine consciousness was like a cloud. After coming out of the Temple of Light, it soon arrived outside Dark Forest Hall. What? At this moment, the Sovereign of Light's divine consciousness was stunned. He had a feeling that something big was going to happen, but he didn't expect it to be something so big. Looking around, he saw that within 50 kilometers of Dark Forest Hall, someone had actually secretly set up a formation and barrier. However, no one in the Xian Forest Hall noticed it. This is the killing formation of 9 cuts. The Light Core God was startled. His wisp of divine awareness scanned the surroundings, and he quickly discovered Jiang Qin and his companions, who were standing in the clouds. And when he saw Old One, a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. However, the next moment, the Sovereign of Light's face darkened. It was because he saw Princess Tianyong, a peak god king. It's over. The Sovereign of Light's heart was bleeding. The Dark Forest Hall that he had nurtured and built back then couldn't escape the fate of being destroyed today. And even if he were a true god, he wouldn't be able to stop this. After all, Jiang Chun had a peak god king by his side. Big nephew, someone is watching us. At this moment, Princess Tian Yong glanced ahead. Her gaze was at the place where the sovereign of light's divine consciousness was. Jiang Chun and the others naturally couldn't see it. After all, their realms weren't as high as Princess Tian Yong's. However, after hearing Princess Tian Yong's description, Jiang Chun suddenly burst into laughter. Old light, why did you split off a divine consciousness for? To watch the forces under you get destroyed? Jiang Chun mocked, knowing that the other party could hear him. F*CKU, the core god of light's divine consciousness, immediately started spewing out profanities, spewing out the three-character classic. However, Jiang Chun couldn't hear it, but Princess Tian Yong translated it for him. At this moment, Jiang Chun's face darkened. He pointed a middle finger at the sovereign of light's divine consciousness and said coldly, "If your original body dares to come, I'll kill you today." Big nephew, he keeps saying F*CKU. Princess Tian Yong continued to translate. This was because the sovereign of light was so angry that he couldn't attack or come out of the light palace. And he didn't dare to come out now. As such, he could only shoot his mouth off. Don't hit people's faces when you hit them, and don't curse people's mothers when you scold them. Old light, aren't you going overboard? Jiang Chun said coldly. Chapter 993. The radiant master god knew not to curse, but he was about to explode from anger. He couldn't leave the radiant palace, nor did he dare to come here. Other than cursing, what else could he do? What infuriated him the most was that Jiang Chun didn't follow the rules. Why did you bring a peak god king here? You don't follow the rules. The radiant master god scolded. The strongest person in the mysterious forest palace is only an upper god. Princess Tian Yong translated from the side. Jiang Chun raised an eyebrow and said mockingly, "So what if I don't follow the rules? When you destroyed my Tenshin Shinzo, did you follow the rules? Now you're talking about rules with me? Are you worthy?" Boom! As his voice echoed, Jiang Chun asked Princess Tian Yong to attack. With a single slap, she destroyed the divine will of the light master god. Tian Chun, I'll kill you sooner or later. The radiant master god was infuriated. His eyes were bloodshot. Boss, why don't you just attack directly? Huang Dade was lying in the air with Jiang Chun on his back. He even plucked a few feathers to make a fan, looking very relaxed. Huang Dade didn't dare to complain. He was just curious. Attack for what? Do you think the mysterious forest palace is so easy to attack? Jiang Chun said in annoyance. Jiang Chun knew about the mysterious forest palace. The strongest thing about it wasn't its combat power, but its seals. His dark nether restriction could be said to be sinister to the extreme. If one were to rashly barge in, even a divine king might suffer grievances. For safety's sake, Jiang Chun could only seal this place first, and then crack the restriction before he could enter the dark forest palace. Is there a need to be so careful? We have ants. Long Dade raised his voice. Ever since he abandoned his principles and acknowledged Princess Tian Yong as his aunts, the entire dragon tribe was emboldened. Niao Dade was the same. All day long, he flattered Princess Tian Yong, almost forgetting which family he belonged to. She has lost her memories. Now, she only has a cultivation base. She doesn't know any skills at all. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. If she barges in recklessly, she'll be severely injured even if she doesn't die. But waiting here is a waste of time, Muyuda said in annoyance. If I have the time, I'll go rob a few more tombs and get you some rare treasures. Your cultivation base to increase. As soon as he said that, the three virtuous beasts immediately nodded. When they looked at Muyuda, their eyes were filled with admiration and gratitude. One had to know that these three Vedanta had not entered the nine heavens divine realm for long, but now their cultivation had all reached Lord God. Muyu to give them credit to you. This fellow was up to no good all day long. He only liked to rob tombs. As for the items he stole, he didn't use them himself. Instead, He gave them to the three great virtuous beings. After all, which one of the items in those ancient tombs were ordinary? Rare treasures were a small matter. Some elixirs that had been brewed for many generations were the most precious. One of those elixirs might not be able to turn a person into a deity, but it could make a person reborn and increase their cultivation base by a large margin. Moreover, Jiang Qin found that the three great virtues titles were quite special. They were obscure, but they contained mysterious principles and great doctrine energy. Luckily, Jiang Qin asked. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known that Mu Yu had found three heaven-grade titles in an ancient tomb. These three heaven-grade titles were now in the bodies of the three deities' masters. Why don't you guys wait here? I'll go around and see if there are any ancient tombs, Mu Yu said. He couldn't stay still. By the way, why do you keep robbing tombs? Jiang Qin suddenly asked. When he first met Mu Yu, he had been robbing tombs. But at that time, Mu Yu's memory was damaged. He had been robbing tombs to find his own identity. But later, Mu Yu recovered his memory. Why did he still want to rob tombs? Sometimes, Jiang Qin really couldn't understand Mu Yu. He always felt that this damn Taoist priest was hiding something from him. I'm looking for something, Mu Yu said. To be precise, I'm looking for a group of living beings. What? Jiang Qin was shocked. Robbing tombs to find someone? What kind of living beings are they? However, Mu Yu didn't explain further. He only told Jiang Qin that those living beings were not ordinary. They were related to reincarnation. Then Mu Yu snorted a few times. He was really bored, so he left to check the surrounding terrain and see if he could find any ancient tombs. However, Mu Yu returned after half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. But this time he didn't come back alone. He brought a living being from the netherworld with him. Ji Luyan? Hey, isn't that the guy in Yongzhou City? The group of people was dumbfounded. They looked at Ji Luyan's bruised and swollen face. Ji Luyan was even more furious. He thought that he was really unlucky. He had just arrived near the Dark Forest Hall when he met Mu Yu. Before he could say anything, he was directly suppressed by Mu Yu. Ji Luyan was both shocked and angry. He was shocked because Mu Yu's combat strength was too strong. He didn't even have the chance to fight back and was directly suppressed. Moreover, he was even beaten up. As for anger, that was the second time Ji Luyan was suppressed. As the saint of the great Luyan of the netherworld, he was suppressed by the same group of people twice. If this spread out, it would be too embarrassing. You guys don't follow the rules. In the future, when the experts of the netherworld come, aren't you afraid of revenge? Ji Luyan said in a low voice. As he spoke, he was still coughing up blood. It was obvious that he was beaten up badly by Mu Yu. Jiang Qin raised his eyebrows and said mockingly, You have to understand the situation. The person who is suppressed is you. How dare you threaten us? Do you want to die? Ji Luyan was stunned when he heard this. He was really scared. Jiang Qin and his group didn't play by the rules at all. Master, did you see that? Back then, you asked me to help the Glory World Academy. Now look at them. Is this something that a human would do? Ji Luyan was crying in his heart, but he still looked very strong on the surface. He didn't say a word and chose to remain silent. By the way, why did you come to Pingzhou when you were staying in Yongzhou? Jiang Qin asked. Ji Luyan was already angry. When he heard this, his chest heaved up and down, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. You still have the face to ask, what did you do in the underground palace of Yongzhou City? Now, the entire Yongzhou is covered by arrays and barriers. We have been expelled. Otherwise, who would be willing to come to this lousy place? Ji Luyan said angrily. Oh, what a coincidence. Jiang Qin said with a smile. We seem to be fated. Who the hell wants to be fated with you? If I knew you were in Pingzhou, I wouldn't have come here, even if you beat me to death. Ji Luyan's face was dark. He didn't want to speak, nor did he want to see Jiang Qin's face. However, in the next moment, Ji Luyan screamed, What are you doing? Chapter 994. Under Ji Luyan's scream, He was thrown out by Jiangchen and smashed into the mountain gate of Dark Forest Hall. Buzz! In an instant, the sect protecting array of Dark Forest Hall was activated and rays of dark light rose up. A wave of netherworld energy erupted as if hell had appeared in the mortal world. The wailing of hundreds of ghosts sounded, and the entire Dark Forest Hall seemed to have turned into hell. This netherworld restriction is a bit mysterious. Someone needs to test the array. Otherwise, we won't be able to find a way to break it in a short period of time. Jiangchen said, "Why don't you test the array yourself?" Ji Luyan roared, and then hurriedly begged for mercy. "Quickly release my seal. Otherwise, I will die." Mu Yud, release his seal and let him jump around inside for a while. I can also see the netherworld restriction clearly, Jiangchen said. Hearing this, Mu Yud formed a seal with both hands, and a ray of light flew into Ji Luyun's body and released his seal. At this moment, Ji Luyun didn't dare to be careless. He summoned the 7 treasure-colored glass tree, and rays of rainbow light enveloped him. The tree had 7 branches, and each branch had 7 leaves. The rainbow light fluctuated like a cocoon and enveloped him. Boom! The netherworld energy in the surroundings constantly bombarded Ji Luyun. Amidst the rumbling, the dark netherworld energy collided with the rainbow light, causing ripples to spread out. An enemy? At the same time, a group of experts walked out of Dark Forest Hall. When they saw the rainbow light at the mountain gate, their expressions changed slightly. Someone exclaimed, "A creature from the netherworld. Kid from the netherworld. Why did you barge into my Dark Forest Hall? Get out of here," a few people angrily rebuked. Their cultivation was higher than Ji Luyun's, and they didn't want to break the rules. Moreover, they came here to wait for Jiangchen. "Do you think I want to come?" Ji Luyun's face was dark as he said in a deep voice, "Remove this netherworld restriction." "There's no need to." Suddenly, Jiangchen's voice came from outside the mountain gate. Subsequently, a seal descended with a bang, and it struck directly at the core of the netherworld's restrictions. Boom! With a loud explosion, the netherworld's restriction shattered. Then, Jiangchen used another seal to break the sect protecting grand formation of the Dark Forest Temple. At this moment, the members of Dark Forest Hall noticed that a slaughter formation of the 9 cuts had actually been set up outside Dark Forest Hall. "Tianchen, you really dare to come here to die? You think you can destroy my Dark Forest Hall just because you've broken the netherworld's restriction and sect-protecting grand array? You're too naive. Today, your life will end here." The sovereigns smirked coldly. They didn't care about the netherworld's restrictions or the sect-guarding grand array at all. However, in the next moment, their expressions froze. Old One took a step forward and punched out horizontally. Like 2 brilliant suns, they landed among them. Boom! 2 explosions rang out, and the crowd exploded. A few people were even blasted away. Their flesh and blood were badly mangled, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Roar! At the same time, Long Dade let out a long roar and spat out a dragon breath. It turned into flames that filled the sky and instantly turned the Dark Forest Hall into a sea of fire. That wasn't the end of it. As the vermilion bird of 10,000, Bird Dade spread his wings and moved. Streaks of vermilion bird true fire fell and drowned everyone together with Long Dade's dragon breath flames. Huang Dade wasn't to be outdone either. He spat out a mouthful of saliva, which then turned into a sea of netherworld flames. 3 types of flames mixed and blended. In just a few breaths' time, the entire Dark Forest Hall was burned clean. Only a few upper-ranked chief gods survived. Black smoke rose from them as they looked at Jiang Chun and the others in horror. "Not dead? This? When did my vermilion bird true fire become so weak? I'm a 9 netherworld phoenix, and that fire is the 9 netherworld fire. Why can't it even burn a few chief gods to death?" The 3 sovereigns were dumbfounded. Logically speaking, even upper-ranked chief gods should have melted under their flames. "You bastards! How dare you burn my Dark Forest Hall? You must have a death wish." At that moment, a furious roar came from the mountain behind Dark Forest Hall. Following that, a godly king's aura erupted. Like a dazzling star, it rose from the mountain behind. There's a godly king? Retreat! The sovereigns had no moral integrity to speak of. The moment they saw a godly king in Dark Forest Hall, their first reaction was to flee. However, they quickly came to their senses, each of them wearing odd expressions. Especially Bird Dade, whose moral integrity was basically in the negatives. Using his wings as a fan, he fanned Princess Tian Yong and said, "Annie, they're bullying us." Jiang Qin blushed when he heard that. He wondered to himself, who's bullying who? Even the surviving upper-ranked chief gods from Dark Forest Hall were dumbfounded. Bullying? Who is it? Annie, it's your turn. At that moment, Jiang Qin's expression turned serious as he saw Dark Forest Hall's godly king charging toward them. He was too fast, like a flash of lightning, and he carried a terrifying, overwhelming aura with him. If Princess Tian Yong didn't attack now, Jiang Qin and the others would probably have to wait for their deaths. However, Princess Tian Yong blinked her beautiful eyes and asked, "Why do I have to attack?" Jiang Qin and the others were confused. Wasn't this a little too naive? Annie, he wants to kill your nephew. Long Dade was enraged. Charging at the front, he could clearly feel that the godly king's strength was too terrifying, and he was about to split open. Back when Tianyong dynasty was destroyed, this guy also attacked. Jiang Chun said blindly. When he first met Princess Tianyong, Jiang Chun had already instilled the concept of revenge in her mind. Now that she heard this, Princess Tianyong naturally understood. Boom! The next moment, Princess Tianyong attacked. She didn't use any divine or Dao techniques. Her slender, jade-like hands were as white as snow. With a push, the godly king charging toward her was sent flying. Then, without waiting for the godly king to react, Princess Tianyong struck across the air with her palm. Like a heavenly canopy, her palm fell from the sky and finally suppressed the godly king to the ground. Boss, how did you teach her? If she was one step slower just now, I would have died. Long Dade said with lingering fear. Who knew she would be so stupid? Jiang Qin muttered softly. Stupid? What does that mean? Princess Tianyong asked. This it means to praise your beauty and strength. Jiang Chun hurriedly made up a story. Oh. Princess Tianyong looked like she understood. What happened next naturally didn't need Jiang Chun to attack, and neither did Princess Tianyong. The three Dades screamed and charged into Dark Forest Hall as if they had gone mad. Wherever the three beasts passed, they swept out like locusts. Everything was snatched and eaten. Of course, the disciples of Dark Forest Hall were fine, but the higher-ups were directly swallowed by Long Dade. Chapter 995. With the killing formation of 9 cuts above, the 4 deities, the first brother, and Princess Tianyong below, Xianxin Hall was powerless to resist. In the end, Xianxin Hall was destroyed, its treasury was plundered, and the higher-ups were all killed. Of course, Jiang Qin spared the lives of those disciples who did not know and did not participate in the pursuit of Tenshin Shinzo. It was really like what Jiang Qin had said. The Light Master God and the others could exterminate everyone and kill all unrelated people, but Jiang Qin couldn't do such a thing. Whoever did it had to bear the consequences. At this moment in Xianxin Hall, Jiang Qin and his group sat there leisurely and chatted. Below them, Ji Liuyun's face was gloomy, and his mouth was full of bitterness. This time, he wanted to come to Xianxin Hall to explore the situation, but he did not expect to meet Jiang Qin and his group. This group of people did not care about the rules at all, and now that Ji Liyun was still alive, even he felt that it was inconceivable. Holy son of Deluyun, at this moment, Jiang Qin looked at Ji Liyun with a smile and asked, "What is Deluyun's position in the netherworld?" Top 10. Ji Liyun was immediately energized and said with a face full of arrogance, "My Deluyun's foundation is not something you can imagine. When my Deluyun's elites descend, the Yang realm is destined to be destroyed." TSK, TSK, TSK. I say, is there something wrong with this kid's brain? Huang Dade squinted, flapped his wings, and said, where are you now? Who has you? Don't you have any idea at all? You look so soft and tender, and you came from the netherworld. With my extreme young physique, I like little insects from the netherworld like you the most. Huang Dade licked his lips and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. To be honest, if not for Jiang Chen stopping him, Ji Liyun would have been eaten by Huang Dade long ago. You can't kill me. Ji Liyun's aura instantly weakened, and he pointed at the intersection of yin and yang and said, yin and yang are about to be chaotic. If you don't follow the rules now, when the yin and yang realms beings descend, you will definitely be the first unlucky ones. Oh, is that so? Mu Yi had heard this and had a strange expression. When he finished speaking, everyone's expressions changed. They could clearly feel that Yud's body was emitting an extremely terrifying aura. That aura seemed to be a supreme aura. Even God Kings would tremble before this aura. Yud's, Jiang Chun, Yud had recovered a long time ago. It's just that it can't be used, Mu Yud said softly. Yud's of the 6 realms. But Yud Yi, Chun Yud, was Yud, Chun Yud, Yud is Yud, and Yud to his is he, and to Yud. As a result, even though he had recovered his strength, he was unable to use it. Duh. I'd break you'd have a duh. Although he would have to pay a huge price, it was nothing compared to his own life. Tell me about the situation in the netherworld. At that moment, Jiang Chen's gaze landed on Ji Liyun. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy, and thou shalt be victorious. It was only a matter of time before the beings of the netherworld descended upon the world of the living. Therefore, it was better to know more about the netherworld before that, so that they could be prepared for future battles. However, Ji Liyun was very stubborn and proud. Although he did not want to die, he would not beg for mercy. As a result, Jiang Chen didn't get an answer even after he had asked him several times. Jiang Chen was a little annoyed. Yud's life is in my hands. How dare you disobey me? The 3 of you go. Jiang Chen looked at the 3 dads and said, do whatever is comfortable. Make him obedient. We're good at this. Boss, isn't it just torturing a person? Long Dade is good at this. Long Dade straightened his back and patted his chest when he heard that. Leave it to me. I will let him know what it means to live a life worse than death. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment. He looked at Long Dade with a strange expression. He thought to himself, how did this holy dragon become like this? Could it be that your title of Dawei and Dada was fake? You shouldn't be called Dawei and Dada in the future. You should change it to Demeng. Jiang Chen muttered. Following that, Long Dade did whatever he wanted. Jiang Chen and the others watched quietly from the side. Half a day later, Ji Liyun could not take it anymore and admitted defeat on the spot. This was because Long Dade's methods were not just for show. Not only was he ruthless, he also had no moral integrity and no bottom line. Threats were the lowest form of intimidation. In the end, Long Dade had resorted to all sorts of methods. The worst time was when Long Dade got a cesspool from somewhere and threw Ji Liyun into it to soak him. This feeling made Jiang Chen and the others feel uncomfortable. As a cultivator, the holy son of Deluyun, Ji Liyun was usually high and mighty. He was not even tainted by a speck of dust. Now, making him suffer from the stench of the mortal world's feces was even worse than killing him. Cultivators and mortals are different in the end, Long Dade said mockingly. As a cultivator, you can die in battle. You can have your cultivation crippled, but you definitely cannot suffer such humiliation. You are so King disgusting. Jiang Chen pinched his nose. The smell of feces was still floating in the hall. At this moment, Ji Liyun's face was gloomy and his eyes were about to spit fire. He wanted nothing more than to kill this dragon. What are you looking at? What? Do you still want to eat feces? Long Dade raised his eyebrows and said, next time, it won't be as simple as eating feces. Ji Luyan was afraid. Even if he was not afraid of death, he was still afraid of torture. Moreover, this kind of torture was simply hurting his self-esteem. There are a total of 10 lands in the Netherworld. Each land has a power that has never changed. In the end, Ji Luyan compromised and said some things about the Netherworld. It turned out that although the Netherworld and the world of the living were parallel planes, they were not the same. In the Netherworld, there were not as many sects and forces as in the world of the living, nor were they as complicated. In the 10 lands of the Netherworld, there was a strongest power overseeing it. Under each power, there would be 3 to 5 subordinate powers or families. Other than that, there were no other miscellaneous forces. It could be said that the order of the Netherworld was very stable, and there was rarely any internal strife. Those 10 top forces controlled everything. And those 10 forces, as long as they gave an order, the cultivators of the Netherworld would listen. This was not like the world of the living, where the forces were complicated and intricate. Even if it was an order from the end of the world, there would not be many sects and forces that would obediently obey. From what you're saying, the matter of attacking the world of the living, in the end, is still the idea of those 10 strongest forces? Jiang Chen asked. No, it's the underworld's intention. Ji Luyan said, in the 10 lands of the Netherworld, each land has a top force. And this underworld is the head of the 10 great forces, and is also the holy land of the Netherworld. Chapter 996. The Underworld, a place that was also spread in the mortal world. Even in the cultivation world, many people had heard of the 2 words underworld. Furthermore, in the 9 heavens divine realm, and even in the godless continent, some sects were also named after the underworld. In the eyes of the world, the underworld was not only a place of the netherworld, not only a place where ghosts gathered, but also a symbol of supremacy. The earth was the sky, and the sky was the highest. The earth was the underworld, and the underworld was the highest. Since ancient times, those who dared to use the 2 words underworld as the name of their forces were never weak. And now, Jiang Chen was guessing that the underworld in the underworld might be the real underworld in this world. However, what made Jiang Chen puzzled was, why did the underworld attack the world of the living? Listening to Ji Luyan's words, the creatures of the underworld had no intention of attacking the world of the living from the beginning. Even the other 9 forces did not have this idea. If not for the order of the underworld, even if the yin and yang were in chaos, the creatures of the underworld would not come to the world of the living. Did the underworld reveal any secrets? Jiang Chen asked. Why did the underworld attack the world of the living? It is said that they came to the world of the living to find something. Ji Luyan was not sure. He frowned after thinking for a while. He said, it could be an item, or it could be a person, or it could be a corpse. A person? A corpse? Jiang Chen was stunned. The underworld ordered the entire underworld to attack the world of the living just for one person? A corpse? This, no matter how you look at it, it doesn't make sense, right? If it's an artifact, then I really can't guess what it is. But if it's a corpse, I can more or less guess a thing or two. Ji Luyan said, not only can I guess, many creatures in the underworld can guess. Oh, tell me about it. Jiang Chen said softly. The underworld's underworld was built in a wasteland of extreme yin. A long time ago, that place was an ancient battlefield. Many experts died there, including emperors and even sovereigns. Ji Luyan explained. It is said that the creature who built the underworld crawled out from that ancient battlefield. Its main body was a psychic corpse. Later on, the underworld gradually grew stronger and established a sect on the wasteland. Today, it has become the strongest force in the underworld. Speaking up to here, Ji Luyan's expression couldn't help becoming strange. He frowned, his eyes flashing with doubt. However, ever since the establishment of the underworld, there have been some changes in the wasteland below. Ji Luyan said, there were a few times when people saw living beings crawl out from the wasteland and then disappear. The most shocking time was when a paragon crawled out of the wastelands, but then he disappeared. Later generations claimed that he was probably a friend of the founder of Hell, and that he was closely related to him. At this point, Jiang Chun did not react at all. He just treated it as if he was listening to a story. However, Muyuda's expression changed slightly, but he quickly calmed down. After that, before Ji Luyun could speak again, Muyuda's face turned serious, and he shouted, "Get to the point. Who wants to listen to you talk about the process? Do you think we're interested in the history of the underworld?" Hearing this, Ji Luyun's face darkened, and he cursed in his heart. "You guys forced me to say it. Wicked Taoist, why are you so agitated? Don't tell me that the living being that crawled out from the underworld is you?" Jiang Chun teased. Muyuda was the lord of the underworld, and in the eyes of ordinary people, the underworld and the underworld were inseparable. Of course, Jiang Chun was only joking. However, when Muyuda heard this, his emotions were obviously affected. He was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head in a panic and said, "I just don't want to listen to your nonsense." "Oh?" Jiang Chun said softly as he stared at Muyuda. He felt that this wicked Taoist was hiding a lot of things from him. However, Jiang Chun didn't ask further. After all, who didn't have a few secrets? Later on, a great sage deduced that the living being that crawled out of the wasteland might have gone to one of the realms in the mortal realm, Ji Luyun said. Of the 6 realms in the mortal realm, the other 5 have been destroyed. So, the underworld concluded that if the living being really did enter the mortal realm, and if it's still alive, it must be in the mortal realm? Jiang Chun understood. But why did the underworld place so much importance on that living being? Although a paragon was extraordinary, it shouldn't be worth the entire underworld's attention, right? Moreover, that was so many years ago. Even if that living being was still alive, it wouldn't be easy to find it in the vast sea of people. If the underworld really wants to find that living being, then that living being must be hiding some kind of secret, Long Dade speculated. Long Dade speculated from the side. His eyes shone with a crafty light as he poked Muyuda and said, "Perhaps that creature has something you want." The 3 great deities had known Muyuda for a long time, and more or less knew why he had been robbing tombs. He was also looking for someone, looking for a living being. In fact, Long Dade even suspected that the one the underworld was looking for was the same as the one Muyuda was looking for. However, Muyuda shook his head and said, "It's definitely not the same." "Are you sure?" Jiang Chun asked curiously. He looked at Muyuda with a half-smile and transmitted his voice. "You've seen the living being that crawled out of the underworld, haven't you?" The others naturally didn't hear Jiang Chun's words, but Muyuda visibly trembled when he heard them. He glanced at Jiang Chun and slowly shook his head. He didn't explain. Then the situation is clearer now. When Jiang Chun saw no reaction from Muyuda, he turned to Ji Luyun and said, "The underworld is attacking the mortal realm to find something or a living being. If the underworld finds that thing, will it leave and return to the underworld?" Ji Luyun smiled bitterly and said, "Although I'm the holy son of De Luyun, I don't know what the higher-ups have planned. So you're saying that even if the underworld really finds that thing, they won't retreat?" Jiang Chun's eyes flashed coldly and said, "It looks like they're really planning to invade the mortal realm. I really don't know if they'll retreat or not, but there's one thing I'm sure of." Ji Luyun said, "The supreme being that crawled out of the underworld has mastered the 6 paths of reincarnation scripture." "What? The 6 paths of reincarnation scripture?" At this moment, not to mention the 3 great virtuous virtues, even Jiang Chun exclaimed in surprise. The 6 paths of reincarnation scripture was one of the most powerful cultivation techniques in history. It was one of the most powerful cultivation techniques in the world, along with the chaos ancient scripture and the yin-yang ancient scripture. However, these ancient scriptures had always existed in legends. No one had ever seen them before. Many people even thought that these ancient scriptures didn't exist at all. They were just made up by the people of the world. I don't know about the other ancient scriptures, but the 6 paths of reincarnation scripture does exist. After all, The most powerful cultivation technique in the underworld is the 6 paths of reincarnation scripture, Ji Luyun said with certainty. Chapter 997. No one knew where the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra came from or who created it. However, it had been listed as one of the most powerful techniques ever since it was created and known to the world. There was a legend in the world that when the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra was cultivated to perfection, one could transcend the cycle of reincarnation and survive hundreds of tribulations. However, this technique had always been a legend. No one had ever seen it before. However, it seemed that the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra did exist. However, it was not in the world of the living, but in the netherworld. The 6 paths of reincarnation sutra is never taught to outsiders. Even the core disciples of the netherworld are not allowed to cultivate this technique. Ji Luyun said, therefore, when a supreme being who crawled out of the wasteland possesses the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra, how could the netherworld not be shocked? So, they want to find that living being and take back the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra. They don't want this technique to be spread, Jiang Chen said softly. However, Jiang Chen was very confused. If it was only for the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra, the netherworld would not go to war with the living. Moreover, the living did not want to go to war with the netherworld. If the living being from the netherworld entered the living when the yin and yang were in chaos, the living being from the netherworld would not have a conflict or even a war with the living being from the netherworld as long as they stated their intentions. After all, the netherworld only needed to find that living being and take back the 6 paths of reincarnation sutra. There was no need for a war. There are some clues. Jiang Chen frowned. While everyone was talking, Jiang Chen's gaze fell on Mu Yuda. This was because Mu Yuda's expression had been a little strange ever since Ji Luyun mentioned the netherworld. This made Jiang Chen very curious. He even wondered if the living being from the netherworld was Mu Yuda. However, after thinking about it carefully, Jiang Chen rejected this idea. Mu Yuda was the lord of the underworld. How could he have crawled out of the netherworld? However, what was with Mu Yuda's strange expression? I've said everything I need to say. Can you let me go now? At that moment, Ji Luyun asked carefully. He truly did not dare to be too arrogant in front of Jiang Chen and the others. He was a little scared. This group of people didn't play by the rules, and didn't play by the rules. Go, no one is keeping you, Jiang Chen said. The moment these words were spoken, Ji Luyun's face darkened, and he cursed in his heart. No one wants me to stay? However, Ji Luyun didn't want to say too much. After hearing this, he turned around and left. However, before he could take more than a few steps, Mu Yuda struck out with his palm and suppressed Ji Luyun again. Moreover, Ji Luyun was restrained in front of Mu Yuda. You? What do you mean? Ji Luyun's eyes widened. His heart was incomparably flustered. Are you sure that the supreme technique of the underworld is the 6 paths of reincarnation? Mu Yuda asked. Yeah. Ji Luyun nodded and said, this is something that everyone in the netherworld knows. You can ask any living being in the netherworld. That's impossible, Mu Yuda muttered softly. His brows were tightly furrowed as if he was very confused. What's going on? You know about the underworld and the 6 paths of reincarnation? Jiang Chen asked. When Mu Yuda heard this, he shook his head. Then, he let go of Ji Luyun and disappeared on his own. Clearly, Mu Yuda didn't want to say too much. In the end, Ji Luyun left, and Mu Yuda also disappeared. No one knew where he went. After Jiang Chen and the others rested for a while in the Xian Forest Hall, they took out the map and prepared to find the next person to take revenge on. However, at this moment, a purple moon suddenly rose in the sky. Looking up, the moon was so huge that its radiance outshone the sun. Beside the bright moon, there was even more terrifying yin qi circulating. Cryptic runes flickered one after another, like a cluster of stars. For a moment, everyone was moved. They stared at the purple moon and felt that the great Tao around them had changed. Yin and Yang are about to go into chaos. The gate at the intersection of the netherworld is about to open. In just half a day, this news swept through the entire nine heavens divine realm. At this moment, the living beings of the netherworld were extremely excited. All of them gathered in Pingzhou, waiting for the arrival of the most powerful beings of the netherworld. On the other hand, in the Yang realm, hundreds of sects and forces chose to seal their mountains in half a day. This made many cultivators of the Yang realm feel a chill in their hearts. During the time of the Yang realm's calamity, before the arrival of the most powerful beings of the netherworld, these top sects and forces chose to seal their mountains and escape. However, on second thought, how could they be blamed for this? One had to know that even the top sects and forces had sealed their mountains, such as the Tianya sect, the Sky-Reaching School, and the Temple of Light. The world has declined. At this critical moment, no one dares to stand out in the vast Yang realm. Is the Yang realm going to surrender to the netherworld? Just as everyone was sighing, a piece of news shook the entire Yang realm. The Jotian dynasty had appeared. Previously, the Jotian dynasty had also chosen to seal their mountains. After all, Jotian was not around, and the other patriarch had yet to unlock the seal. In order to protect themselves, the Jotian dynasty could only seal their mountains. But now, no one expected that when the other forces sealed their mountains and chose to escape, the Jotian dynasty would actually appear. It was also on this day that the Jotian dynasty announced to the world as a prince that the Jotian dynasty was willing to protect one side, and they were not afraid of the netherworld. As expected of the Jotian dynasty, this is more like a dynasty. Many living beings were excited, and many itinerant cultivators entered the territory of the Jotian dynasty to seek protection. Jiangchen also received the news not long after. His expression froze as he thought to himself, could it be that the Jotian dynasty chose to appear now because the other patriarch's seal has been unlocked? After carefully calculating the time, it seemed to be the case. However, Jiang Chun was very clear about the situation of the patriarch of the Jotian dynasty. Even if the seal was unlocked, he would still be very weak and would need a long time to recuperate. In Jiang Chen's eyes, the current Jotian dynasty was still not very strong. It was obviously not a wise move to appear at this time. What is the Jotian dynasty thinking? Could it be that Jotian has returned? Jiang Chen frowned. What the world's edge does not dare to do, our Linlang Academy dares to do. What the world's edge does not dare to kill, our Linlang Academy dares to kill. Yin and Yang are in chaos. Our Linlang Academy is willing to transform into the heavens and protect all living beings in the world. On the same day, the Linlang Academy announced to the world with great fanfare. This academy had never sealed their mountains from the beginning. They had an extremely strong foundation, and behind them was the Pingtian clan. Moreover, whether it was when the living beings of the netherworld descended or when the living beings of the upper-class world entered the world of the living, the Linlang Academy had never retreated, nor had they sealed their mountains. This time, they made such a public announcement and even used the world's edge as a comparison. It was obvious that the Linlang Academy's goal was not simple. Perhaps the Linlang Academy wanted to use this opportunity to suppress the world's edge, or even replace it. Chapter 998. The world's edge and the Pingtian clan had been sworn enemies since ancient times, but they had never truly gone to war. Sometimes, both sides would even help each other. Such a relationship was truly unfathomable. Moreover, the world did not know which was more powerful between the world's edge and the Pingtian clan. They only knew that these two giants had extremely deep foundations. But now, the world's view of these two factions had changed. In the mortal realm's moment of crisis, the world's edge chose to seal its mountain, while the Pingtian clan chose to protect the world in the name of Glittering Jewel Academy. Glittering Jewel Academy is far stronger than Flourishing Jewel Academy. The factions behind them are the Pingtian clan and the world's edge. I think the world's edge is a coward. For a time, More and more voices slandered the world's edge, while the Pingtian clan and Glittering Jewel Academy's praise grew louder and louder. Moreover, a mighty figure of Glittering Jewel Academy used a great ability to expand the entire academy in a day. They were still recruiting disciples and taking in some weaklings to protect them. Just as they announced to the world, the Pingtian clan used the name of Glittering Jewel Academy to protect the world and the mortal realm. Foolish people. At this moment, in front of Flourishing Jewel Academy's main hall in Sangzhou, although the mountain was sealed, the world's edge still knew what was happening in the outside world. The gray-haired old man stood quietly in front of the main hall and sighed at the ignorance of the world. Beside him, Hong Kong stood side by side. He had recovered very well and was almost back to his peak. There will always be fools in the world. Why argue with them? Hun Gang sighed. How can the world know what the Lord has done? The gray-haired old man sighed and shook his head. Sometimes I wonder if what the Lord has done is worth it. Hun Gang sighed heavily when he heard this. Others might not know, but Hun Gang had conversed with the gray-haired old man many times in Flourishing Jewel Academy. After all, Huan Gong's seniority was there. Now that he had recovered most of his strength, he was qualified to talk to the gray-haired old man. According to the gray-haired old man, the reason why the world's edge sealed its mountain was because something had happened to Zi Xiao. Back then, when Zi Xiao personally attacked and killed the emperor who descended from the netherworld, he was injured. However, with Zi Xiao's strength, even if he was injured, it would not be a serious injury. There was no need to seal the entire Tinya mountain. The reason for this was that Zi Xiao had not only killed the emperor of the netherworld, but he had also disturbed yin and yang. He used his own Tao to forcefully disturb the yin and yang, allowing the yin and yang to temporarily be in a state of balance. As a result, the reversal of the yin and yang would be much slower. He was buying time for the sake of the entire mortal realm, and the price he paid for this was too great. Not only was he heavily injured, even his divine soul and soul had almost been shattered. In particular, cracks had appeared on his foundation and Tao fruit. At that time, the gray-haired old man had once gone to the mountain peak at the edge of the world. He had seen the ground covered in blood, and he had also seen the dying Zi Xiao. At that time, if the other patriarchs of the world's edge hadn't found out about this and acted in time, Zi Xiao would have died. The purple moon has appeared, but the blood sun has yet to be seen. The gray-haired old man said softly. His eyes were filled with helplessness and bitterness as he looked at the purple moon in the sky. Logically speaking, once the purple moon appeared, the blood sun would also appear. When the sun and the moon appeared at the same time, yin and yang would be in chaos. However, it was precisely because Zi Xiao had interfered and disrupted the rules of yin and yang that only the purple moon had appeared and not the blood sun. But what could this do? It wouldn't be long before the rules of yin and yang would be restored. Then there would be chaos, breaking the balance between the two realms of yin and yang. At that time, the living beings of the netherworld would be able to descend into the mortal realm without any scruples. After sacrificing so much in exchange for less than a month's time, sir, is it really worth it? The gray-haired old man sighed. What will the world's edge do when yin and yang are in chaos? Will it come into being? Hun Gang asked. I'm just an old man who watches over the mountain. I can't decide whether the world's edge will come into being or not. The gray-haired old man smiled bitterly. Then, a trace of sternness flashed in his eyes. He turned around and stared at Hun Gang. He said seriously, the people who have sacrificed for this world aren't just those in Eternal Fortress. You mean? Hun Gang said softly. The world's edge has been protecting this world all this time. It's not just protection, the gray-haired old man said. For this world, the world's edge has almost been destroyed several times. Hun Gang was immediately moved when he heard this. The dignified world's edge had almost been destroyed, and not just once or twice. Then, who was the enemy the world's edge was facing? An otherworldly being? Or the netherworld? Or could it be that there were still unknown enemies in this world? This is what the world's edge prepared for you. After a few breaths, the gray-haired old man took out a sealed box and handed it to Hun Gang. Hun Gang frowned and opened the box with a puzzled expression. In an instant, rays of divine light shot into the sky, and runes sprayed out of the box like a rain of light. At this moment, Hun Gang's expression froze. This was because inside the box was a godhead, a godly king godhead. Moreover, it was a heaven-ranked godly king godhead. One had to know that a heaven-ranked godly king godhead was something rarely seen since ancient times. This was a godhead that required a god with a heaven-ranked title to become a godly king after experiencing countless tribulations and difficulties. Since ancient times, there had been many godly kings, but those who had a heaven-ranked godly king godhead could be counted on one hand. Even Jiang Qin's previous life, godly king Tian Qin, was only an earth-ranked godly king. Why did the world's edge give me this? Hun Gang asked. The world's edge won't appear for the time being, but we can't sit by and do nothing, the gray-haired old man said. You're about to recover to your peak. When the time comes and you fuse with this godhead, you'll become a heaven-ranked godly king. You want me to take action on behalf of the world's edge? Hun Gang asked. You can choose to take action or sit by and do nothing, the gray-haired old man said. It's all up to you. If you pity the world and hate the netherworld, then you can take action. Hun Gang laughed bitterly and said, You know me. If I didn't have this world in my heart, why would I go to the eternal city in the first place? Then take action, the gray-haired old man said. In this world, someone has to stand up. Perhaps you won't be able to defeat them, or perhaps you won't be invincible, but at least let the world know that this world is not cold and still has feelings. Not cold, still has feelings. Hun Gang muttered softly. As if he had understood something, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. At the same time, Jiang Qin and his group were intercepted at the mountain gate of Dark Forest Hall. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.